Sergeant Arms, please secure the doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right. This morning, we are pleased to be joined by Dr. William Campbell of the Union Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Brandywine, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from District 27. Members, please rise for the invocation.
Let us pray. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Eternal and gracious God, we come to you today acknowledging that it is because of your goodness that we are blessed to stand in this hallowed place. We come to give you thanks for another expression of grace that provides us with another day in the land of the living. We bless and magnify your holy and righteous name. We come to petition you for this great state of Maryland. We come asking that you would look favorably in our direction and bless the Maryland Senate. We come from counties and cities looking to work to make Maryland the best state it can be. We acknowledge that we cannot do it without you. Please cause your grace to rest favorably upon the governmental leadership of this state. Look now upon our governor, our representatives, our senators, men and women, whom the good people of Maryland have elected to serve this present age. We ask, O God, that you would forgive us from our sins against you and your creation. Forgive us for not passionately pursuing justice and liberty for all. Forgive us for being insensitive to the plight of all citizens of this great state. Forgive us for not being willing to make bold and necessary changes where they are needed to transform our state and the lives of our citizens. Forgive us and grant us mercy to redeem ourselves and to do better toward you and toward those whom we serve. We ask, O God, that you would send heavenly wisdom to deal with our earthly condition. We need deliverance from the enemies of progress that would hinder the Maryland Senate from achieving the goals of working toward a better society for all people. We need your divine guidance to help us look honestly and deal forthrightly with the challenges that are ahead. We pray for your blessings upon this body as they enter their deliberations today. May their deliberations be fruitful and their work meaningful as they serve the people of Maryland. Ever mindful that we are a part of a larger body of these United States, we pray the same for our president and Congress and for governors and state legislatures throughout this great nation. We pray for our men and women who serve day and night in our armed forces, protecting the liberties which we embrace and engage in today. We pray for families of all who serve others any and everywhere. We pray especially for our nation as we work and strive to overcome the ravages of COVID-19, and for those first responders who put their lives on the line to keep us safe and to make us whole. This is our prayer and our petition, but we do not limit our need for you in this moment with these few and meager words. We need you now, and we always need you to guide and direct our lives and our labors. Guide us, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrims through this barren land. We are weak, but you are mighty. Hold us in your powerful hand. Bless us and keep us ever before you. In the name of the God of all creation, we pray. In your matchless name, amen.
All right. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the opportunity for Reverend Campbell to speak today. The church is located in the sub-district of 27A, but there's a connection there. This church has been the home of my stepdad or my dad's family for well over 100 years. So this is a great congregation of folks who are dedicated to serving in our county and throughout our state. So I would ask that these words be journalized. Thank you again, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Thank you for the bringing the Reverend to our body today. Without objection, we will journalize the Reverend's wonderful remarks. Gave us some energy this morning for the long day ahead. Has everybody recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Senators, today we're going to go for probably, we're going to say between 1 and 2 o'clock. We'll see probably on the closer to the 2 o'clock side. And then we will be back tonight at 6. So back tonight at 6 p.m. and we'll see where we land later this evening. Keep tomorrow open for the moment. We'll see how far we can go with a double session today, but we're getting there. There's another administrative note that I was going to pass along, but it seems to have escaped me. It was a long day yesterday. Got to kick the cobwebs out. All right, well, it'll come back later. Any other announcements? Oh, I remembered it was. This afternoon, there is the sexual harassment training from 3 to 5, and there are a number of them that have been scheduled. If anyone has not yet scheduled, or if someone has had to miss, please make sure to reschedule. The days are getting short. It's only going to get more chaotic. Please make sure that it's a virtual training. I've heard it's pretty good and informative, so I look forward to participating in it today at 3 o'clock, and hope to be joined by a number of you all. All right. Now I think we're ready. Any other issues, announcements, questions before we jump into things today? If not, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. Let's go ahead and begin with the message from the House of Delegates. This is first reading House Bills, Calendar 16. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 4, Delegate Grammar, Baltimore County Career Exploration and Developmental Activities in Public High Schools, prohibiting a ban or regulation of sale of coffee. House Bill 12, Delegate C. Watson,
Majority
alcoholic
Leader moves
beverages.
so be considered the reading of the bills. Next, we have laid over bills from yesterday. This is Calendar 15. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 202, Senator Kelly, Correctional Services, Parole, Life Imprisonment. Question is on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, Senators, the question is on the two committee amendments. The two committee amendments, Chair recognizes the Senator from the 34th District.
Yeah, Mr. President, I had an amendment prepared and there was an error in it. They're redrafting. I just asked, could we special order this to the end of this calendar?
How about, we can adopt the amendments in the report and then...
Okay.
And then we see if anything's come back yet?
All right.
Okay. All right, let's do on the amendments. These are the committee amendments, Senators. Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill increases the amount of time that an inmate who has been sentenced to life imprisonment after being convicted of a crime committed on or after October 1st, 2021.
Oh, Senator, I think we're good on the amendments, just on the two committee amendments.
Okay.
We didn't explain the bill?
Apologies.
My apologies, Senator. Please, go ahead. Please.
Okay, so this bill, on or after October 1st, 2021, under this bill, a person must serve before being eligible for parole consideration from 15 years or its equivalent, considering allowances for diminution credits, to 20 years, without allowances for diminution credits. The amended bill also provides that such an inmate may only be granted parole with the affirmative votes of 6 members of the Maryland Parole Commission, which has 10 members. Finally, the amended bill also eliminates a requirement that the parole of a person serving a parole-eligible life sentence in a state correctional facility or the Patuxent institution subsequent to a recommendation for that parole by the Parole Commission or the Patuxent Board of Review be approved by the governor. There are 2 committee amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 eliminates allowances for diminution credits from the time that an inmate under the bill must serve before being eligible for parole consideration. The amendment additionally requires that inmates under the bill may not be granted parole may only be granted parole with the affirmative votes of 6 members of the Parole Commission. I would move the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question now officially is on the amendments. Any discussion on the 2 committee amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to speak on the, before we adopt the report.
On the report, Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify what the bill does, and to go back through, our structure in Maryland that this is built around is still really built around the system of when you commit a murder and first-degree murder, we had the death penalty, we had life without parole, and life with the possibility of parole. And so if you were facing those, and yes, the capital punishment is abolished, but it still plays in because people that are within this system, many of them were cases where the death penalty was sought. And that plays in because the current system, if you get life with the possibility of parole, sorry, it's a little loud back here. If you get life with the possibility of parole, then the court can seek, the state sought life without the possibility of parole death sentence, then you have 25 years until you are eligible for parole. Otherwise, if you just get life with possibility of parole and they didn't seek those charges, you're eligible at 15 years. So this is the problem with the bill, in that when you remove the governor, and I would say there are good reasons, I think there are good arguments about removing the governor. I will actually concede that. Because we've had governors in the past who abdicated their responsibility on this issue, and that essentially for their whole term would not make a decision one way or the other. And this body, and I was glad to support legislation that forced a previous governor to make a decision one way or the other, at least on these cases. And actually, Governor Glendening has did a. I had a nice talk with him about this, and he explained his decision making. The problem is, though, the structure right now in Maryland, once you remove the governor from the current cases, they're eligible at only 15 years. So someone that committed a murder in Maryland is eligible at 15 years, but with diminution credits, that's 11 and a half years. I checked the Department of Public Safety. So that's my hesitation with the bill. I know there might be some amendments, hopefully, to fix that, because it's as if the structure is all completely built around having the governor in it. And when you remove the governor, Maryland, therefore, will have one of the most permissive penalties for first-degree murder for these individuals. Because it was 15 and essentially 11 and a half years possibility, but because you had a governor as a backstop, you got to remember, with Governor O'Malley and Glendening, they didn't release anyone. So for essentially 16 years, they didn't release anybody. And even the current governor, I think, is releasing around half. So you're going to a system where a straight 6 people, and thankful of the amendment, 6 of the 10, though, on the parole board can release somebody at 11 and a half years. And put that in perspective, only the state of West Virginia, Nebraska, and Washington would be more permissive than us. So if you look at some of the other states, I think it's instructive to see where we'd be at. Alabama, first-degree murder, no parole. Alaska, no parole. Arizona, 25 years. Arkansas, governor has to do it. California, 25 years. Colorado, no parole. Connecticut, no parole. Delaware, no parole. Florida, no parole. Georgia, 30 years. Hawaii, 20 years, plus the governor has to be involved. Idaho, no parole. Illinois, no parole. Indiana, no parole. Iowa, no parole unless the governor commutes. Kansas, 25 years. Kentucky, 25. Louisiana, no parole. Maine, no parole. Maryland's 15 years plus the governor. This takes the governor out, of course. Massachusetts, no parole. Michigan, no parole. Minnesota, 30 years. Mississippi, no parole. Missouri, no parole. Montana, 30 years. Nebraska is one of the ones I said has no set sentence, would be less than this. Nevada, 20. New Hampshire, no parole. New Jersey, 25 years. New Mexico, no parole if there's an aggravating murder, minimum of 20 years. North Carolina, no parole. North Dakota must serve 85% of sentence. Ohio, 20 years. Oklahoma, 85. Oregon, 25. Pennsylvania, no parole. Rhode Island, 25. South Carolina, 30 years. South Dakota, no parole. Tennessee, 25 years. Texas, no parole. Utah would be more permissive. Minnesota or Vermont, 35. Virginia, 20. Washington, 34. West Virginia is one of the three more permissive. Wisconsin, 20. And no parole, Wyoming, unless governor commutes. So I know it's painstaking. I read the whole thing off for everyone to listen, but I wanted everyone to see the posture the state of Maryland will be in. The vast majority of these states, you commit a first-degree murder, there is no parole. Life is life. And the remaining ones were 20, 25, 30 years. In Maryland, once we remove the governor from the current system, that's people that are currently sentenced, they become eligible at 11 and a half years. And that is a problem, again, like we talked about yesterday, where the families have to come back in. And under the the chair is saying 20 years. Yes, Madam Chair, in response, that is the bill for the people that are commit new crimes, it's 20 years. If you look at the current law, it's 15 years. I'd be happy to answer questions if you have a question. But anyways, I'll leave it at that. So that's my problem with the bill, is that under the current law, people that commit penalties become eligible at 11 and a half years.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any? Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Well, I just wanted to clarify something that was just raised, which is that the concept that someone that is currently serving life with the possibility of parole could suddenly, under this bill, be released at 11 and a half years is completely incorrect. It's theoretical. In the history of Maryland, no one's even been released at the 15-year point, or certainly not with the dim credits 11.5. So it's not really something that we need to be concerned about. As the Senator just mentioned, Maryland is one of only 3 states that has this governor in parole. I want to reiterate, just in case anyone is confused by what they just heard, that under this bill, we raise the minimum time frame from 15 years to 20 years with no dim credits, and then simply say that with a majority of the appointed commissioners, parole commissioners, all of whom are currently appointed by Governor Hogan, the current governor, within a majority of vote, then someone can then be eligible for parole and receive parole without the approval of the governor, as is done in, 48 other states. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wondered if the floor leader would yield for a question following up on that.
Will the floor leader yield? Senator may proceed.
Thank you. And I, just following up on your statement there, number one, you said the idea that 11 and a half years, the idea that someone would actually get parole at 11 and a half years is highly unlikely, correct?
Well, it's never happened.
It's never happened. Does the family have to come in for that parole hearing?
The family is notified. They don't have to come in for a parole hearing. And I want to be clear. In the current structure, in order for someone to get recommended by the Parole Commission, there's a whole process. So first, there has to be 2 commissioners that conduct the investigation and recommend them to be considered for parole. Once that happens, there's a risk assessment that occurs. And when that risk assessment occurs, currently, people are literally sitting 18 months to 2 years waiting for the completion of the risk assessment. So it's often years before they even get there. In addition, so then for the few people that seep through the risk assessment process and then get to be considered by the whole entire Parole Commission, those are the ones that are recommended for parole. And what I'm saying to you is, even if we take the governor out, the Parole Commission isn't recommending people that have served 11 and a half years on first-degree murder for release.
So there wouldn't even be necessarily, in all likelihood, a hearing, or would there be some sort of hearing? How does that process work?
So the ones that make it through would get a parole hearing, yes.
Okay, and then just to maybe either question, I guess my follow-up question is, you just talked about how we're one of only 3 states that the governor's involved in. But again, the context is important because on the overall policy, we understand the larger debate, but on the larger point, as my colleague just said, is that other states have much longer minimum times before you can be considered. So, I mean, we're saying we're one of only 3 states, but it's not. It's kind of an apples and oranges. Wouldn't you agree that other states have much longer or stronger requirements for time served versus having a state where you come up at 11 and a half, come up at 20, and the governor has a final check?
Some states may have longer requirements, but I want to be clear that we're talking about a combination of people that are sentenced to life with the possibility of parole and life without the possibility of parole in Maryland.
Okay. Can I ask you one other question? What would this bill do for people who are convicted under things, just so I can understand it better? If someone has a mandatory minimum 25-year sentence for a crime, which I believe we have in statute for certain crimes, like dealing with minors, dealing with children under 13, what happens with this bill? Do they get a chance to come up for parole? What does this bill do to that?
If someone has a mandatory 25 and if it's a crime of violence against a child, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Does this bill affect them?
Yes.
They would, this doesn't change their process. They would have the same parole process that they have now, simply if they were actually recommended at some point for release, the governor would not have to approve that parole recommendation.
Okay. Mr. President, I have an amendment here that I would like to offer at this time if it's appropriate.
Senator, we still have to adopt the favorable committee report.
That's right. Okay.
So
I can wait. That's fine.
Okay. Let's see. We have the senator from District 34 on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the report, because if you look at this, it's an interesting setup here because we deal with, it's on page 2 of the bill at the top. We have 2 systems set up here. One's for people who committed their crime before October 1, 2021. So anybody between now and this coming October, that's the system. And then right below that, we have a system that's going to take place after October 1 of 2021. So there's two critical pieces in this. And what the bill says right now, just the language of the bill, I'm just going to quote from the bill. If you're going to commit, if you're already in the DOC, you're going to commit your crime between now and October, you have to serve 15 years or the equivalent of 15 years when considering allowances for diminution credits and inmates' period of confinement as provided. So, and as the minority leader explained, that means you have to serve 11 and a half years. But then right below that, the next section says, but if you commit your crime after October, you got to serve 20 years. So we have 15 years and 20 years. And the explanation that we get for that distinction is, well, hey, the bureaucracy is not going to let people out in 11 and a half years. Well, this isn't about, we shouldn't write legislation that says, well, here's what the bureaucracy is doing right now. What we should do is put a clear statement of public policy. This should reflect a clear statement of our public policy, what this body thinks. And right now, what this law reflects, what this body thinks, is that murders committed after October, you got to serve 20. If you're already in the DOC, 11 and a half. That's what the law says. And to say, well, we're going to rely, there's a big distinction there. We clearly see the need to go from October 1 to say you got to serve 20. But to say, well, we're going to fudge it with the guys in there because we sort of think the bureaucracy is going to got our back and they're not going to let them out before 20 anyway. That's not how we should write the laws. I have an amendment I'll be introducing later to address that, but that's clearly a problem. The other issue we have with this bill is that if you look, we did strike out on page 2 in line 9 It says is not eligible for parole consideration until the inmate has served 20 years. What's not clear, which I think ought to be made abundantly clear, is whether that is without allowance for diminution credits or confinement credits. And I think that's a people ought to at least serve 20 years for taking a life. Don't think that's too much to ask. I think that ought to be a statement that this body makes, that you deliberately, willfully, with premeditation, kill somebody, take their life, we're going to take 20 years of your life. Obviously, that's not going to apply. Based upon what this body passed yesterday, last night for juveniles, it's not going to apply to them. They still get that look back. But for a full-grown adult to willfully, premeditated, take someone's life, I think this body ought to have a very firm statement. You're giving up 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, question is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Senator from the 34th District has an amendment. No, 5th District. Apologies. 5th District, I believe, was first.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. And if it's appropriate now, I'd like to talk about it and offer the. Let me go ahead and give you the number of the amendment.
That'd be perfect. Thank you, Senator.
Amendment number 283228/1.
228. Just give us one moment.
Sure. And for the floor leader, I did email this to your laptop. I apologize. It's this dynamic where we can't walk over and hand things to people is proving challenging here in the closing days of session.
All right, Senator, it is up on the computers.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President. So the General Assembly, about, I want to say it was 15 years ago, it might have been 13 or 14 years ago, made a policy call about protecting children, about justice for victims, child victims of sex crimes. And we made a mandatory 25-year sentence. If it was a mandatory 25-year sentence for certain types of crimes for children under 13. What my amendment would do is, because I think it's very important that this 20-year issue I'm concerned about. I have some problems with the bill in general, but I would like, what my amendment would do would be to say that if you've been sentenced to life imprisonment, you're not eligible for parole until you've served 25 years if you were convicted of murder in the first degree, rape in the first degree, or sexual offense in the first degree to a child who is under the age of 13. Because right now, as I see it, the bill changes current law to go from 25 mandatory minimum for these kind of sentences back to 20. And I'm very concerned about that, because that was a fight and a policy call that was very important in this state for making it very clear that we value the innocence and health and well-being of our children above all, and that if someone viciously violates that they deserve to, at the very least, spend 25 years in prison. So I don't want anything to water that down. I agree with my colleague from Frederick County. As I sat on the committee for years, he and I agree philosophically. There is an argument to say, should the governor that appoints the Parole Commission have a final say? There's room for that argument. But if we were going to do that, we should have very clear safeguards, and this should be one of them. So I would move my amendment, Mr. President, just to say, if you're in that category, basically sort of the Jessica's Law category, you should have to serve 25 years before you get the opportunity to be out on parole. So I would move my amendment.
Senator moves this amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask the body to resist this amendment. I want to make it clear that nothing about this bill changes a sentence that's already in place. And for those category of crimes and convictions, Maryland already doesn't allow for the diminution credit. So the other argument that we heard that talked about someone being able to be released sooner, there's a specific prohibition for dim credits for those types of sexual offenses against children. And so I think this is a non-issue. I want to focus on the purpose of this bill, which is to simply remove the governor from parole decisions as the majority of other states do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Minority Whip.
Yeah, the bill does more than removing the governor. The big discussion is the parole time that they're eligible. And just to be clear, current law, with the governor included, is 15 years, which is 11 and a half, which we're talking about, and 25 if it's an aggravating, very bad one. The current bill would be prospective to move everyone to 20. So the concern we brought up was under people in the current system, which is 11 and a half, but the senator's amendment gets at people in the future. So prospectively in the bill puts it at 20, but we get rid of the 25. So the senator's amendment, this is certainly an aggravating circumstance under a law. There's no reason to say they shouldn't be 25, which the current law says 25 parole eligibility on the most heinous, worst crimes. So I would support the senator's amendment to say that if you commit one of these heinous acts against somebody under 13, which is in keeping with our body, that you should be under the 25 system that the current law currently allows for, rather than 20 that this bill would call for.
Question on the amendment. Any discussion? Chair recognizes any senators who wish to speak who have not yet spoken. If not, Chair recognizes Senator from District 5.
Yes, just to sort of, I guess, close here with this amendment. I know we had a long debate on another bill where we offered a lot of amendments, and I think it can be easy to tune out after a while, and I understand. I may not agree with the decisions that some of my colleagues have made on their votes with different amendments, but I understand that after a while you feel like you hear the same thing, heinous crimes. You can become desensitized to what we're saying. But this is a very specific situation where we as a state made a policy call to make sure that people who would commit the most vicious crimes against children would serve a minimum sentence of 25 years. And this amendment tries to get at not just current, but prospectively. We're trying to be sure that if people sentenced in the future for these kind of crimes, and I hope that nobody ever is sentenced for these kind of crimes again. I hope that no crimes like this ever happen again, but we know that they will. Because there's a lot of darkness out there, a lot of evil. And I want to just be sure that if we're taking the governor out, that on these crimes, that these people stay the 25 years. So, Mr. President, I would just move the amendment. I would ask for a roll call vote.
Question is on the amendment. On the amendment. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Sure, thank you. I just want to which the state seeks life without possibility of parole. The senator from Frederick is right. It's 25 years, but that's less dim credits, so you could get out theoretically in 22 or even less than that. That's the current law. What we've done with this bill is at least bump up for the folks that were life with the possibility of parole. Instead of being out in 15 or 20 or less than that, we've bumped it up to 20, no dim credits. So I just want to make sure that that's clear for the body.
All right, on the amendment. On the amendment. All right, any further discussion? If not...
Can I just one
yes.
second? So just to take a respite, could I ask that this bill be special ordered before we even consider this amendment? Could I ask for the special ordered to the end of the calendar?
Sure. How about we do it to the end of the day today?
That sounds good. Thank
All
you.
right. Are there any objections to that special order? Without objection, so ordered. All right. The clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 401, Senator Carter. Landlord-tenant non-renewal of lease notice requirements. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right. Question is on the adoption of the three committee amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The three committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Yes, Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment, please.
Just one moment, Senator. Let's adopt the report quickly. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is amended. Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee with an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's Amendment 203-823/1.
All right. Just give us one moment, Senator. All right. Senator can explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment simply deals with the notice requirement where the landlord is being foreclosed upon. I've spoken with the sponsor of the bill and the chair of the committee. I believe it's a friendly amendment.
All right. Any further discussion on the amendment? Any objections to the amendment? All in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 401 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 623, Senator Lee, Criminal Law, Crimes Involving Computers. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
Chair recognizes the questions on the two committee amendments. Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore and Hartford counties.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ordered an amendment last night, have not gotten it, so if you want to adopt the committee report and just, if we could special order to the end of this session, and hopefully I'll have the amendment by then.
All right, let's adopt, and then we'll check in with the floor leader once we move on once we get the report adopted. But shouldn't be a problem. Questions on the amendments? Any discussion of the amendments? All in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Senator is waiting on an amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader of the bill to see if we can wait on an amendment that is coming.
I have not received the amendment yet, but I can wait till the end of the session. That's fine. I'd like to see it, though. I'd like to be able to have the courtesy of being able to see the amendment.
And Senator, I think the maker of the amendment hasn't received it yet. Is what?
Yeah. Like I always do, I will give you a courtesy copy when I get it, but I have not received it yet.
I think the amendment office is drafting it up. Is that correct, Senator?
Yes, sir.
All right. Senator, how about this? How about we put it at the end of the calendar, end of the day, behind the one that we just had, and hopefully we'll have the amendment by then and take it up before we adjourn.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any objections? Without objections, so ordered. We'll take up the bill at the end of this session today. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 97, Senator Rosapep, Purple Line Marketing Act. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, question is on the two committee amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 97 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 741, Senator Rosapep, COVID-19 Testing, Contact Tracing, and Vaccination Act of 2021.
Give us just one moment. All right, 741. Question before the body is on the 9 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the 9 amendments, Chair recognizes Senator from Anne Arundel.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I have a series of questions and an amendment coming. Again, and to my peer on the floor who was questioning the amendment process, I put it in at 10 o'clock this morning. They're working really hard down there. I don't think it's going to come back in time for this extended debate that I have. So I urge an adoption of the amendments and then special order till the appropriate time.
Excellent. All right, let's do this. So let's handle the amendments. So question before the body is the 9 committee amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the 9 committee amendments say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 9 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Do we want to move, Senator, was the request for a special order at this point, or was it after?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Oh, okay. Chair recognizes the floor leader on the special order request. And then it's a special order to the second session today. Is that correct, Senator?
Yes.
Mr. President, that's fine. Thank you.
All right. No objections. Any objections on the senator's motion? Without objections, so ordered. Senate Bill 741 will be special order to the second session today. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 415, Senator Pinsky, Public Financing Act, Matching Fund Revisions, Maryland Fair Elections Act. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendment and the favorable report.
All right, questions on the 1 committee amendment. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 415 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 205, Senator Heddleman, alcoholic beverages, sale or delivery for off-premises consumption. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right. Question is on the adoption of the three committee amendments. Discussion on the amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendments say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The three committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've requested two amendments, one of which I've gotten, and I have a whole lot of questions about this bill. Would you prefer starting the discussion now before I get the second amendment, or special order and we do it all at once?
Why doesn't the senator put an amendment before us, and then we'll see if there's a discussion on the amendment, and then at the moment we don't have any, the body doesn't have anything before us. So if the senator wants to introduce an amendment.
That's fine. So the amendment is 963920.
920. One moment, Senator. All right, the senator may explain the amendment in the context of the amendment, and we'll see where we go once we hear from the floor leader after that.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I special ordered this bill yesterday because I have grave concerns about the whole bill. As the floor leader explained, basically what this bill does is it takes an emergency measure, part of the COVID crisis, where the governor and we were trying to help restaurants who were struggling, have been struggling during the pandemic, to make a little bit more money, to help them survive. I supported it. I don't know, I think many people supported it. It's not the only way we helped restaurants. I know restaurants across my district that got PPP loans that were forgivable by the federal government. I know restaurants across my district that got grants from the state, that got grants from the county, even grants from our cities. We all wanted to help our restaurants. We want to continue to help our restaurants. One way the governor proposed to do it was to allow restaurants which did not have the authority to do off-site liquor sales. Get a mixed drink, take it out, or have it delivered to your office or delivered to your home that has been barred in the past in most situations, to allow them to do it during the pandemic. What this bill does is it takes an understandable, reasonable emergency measure and normalizes it. Why is that important? Because we have two pandemics in this state and in this country. Two health pandemics. One is COVID, and the other is excessive alcohol use, inappropriate alcohol use, binge drinking. Now, I don't have to remind my colleagues about drunk driving or about domestic abuse or all the other dangers that excessive drinking causes. We've dealt with lots of legislation on that issue. The studies from the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health and University of Maryland School of Public Health and every school of public health probably in the world shows that one of the major predictors of excessive drinking is excessive access. What this bill does is it compounds the problem of our health pandemic of excessive use of alcohol. What this bill does, as written, is it says that even when the emergency is over, they're still going to be able to have mixed drinks to go, to have beer and wine to go, to be delivered. Now, some places that may not be an issue. So why am I sensitive to this? Because I live in College Park, and I represent College Park. College binge drinking is a subset of our alcohol problem. It has been documented by studies funded by the National Institute of Health on campuses in Maryland. And one of the things it shows, which is always interesting to me, disturbing to me, but interesting, I've heard over the years when we try to deal with these alcohol problems, particularly on university campuses, well, boys will be boys and girls will be girls. Often that's good, not in this case. It turns out that to do more binge drinking than young people of the same age who are not in college. There's a cultural issue here. There's an access issue here. And so I'm sensitive to this representing tens of thousands of students at the University of Maryland, but it's not just in the University of Maryland. And I ask you to think about your own counties. I certainly know in terms of my own district, in terms of Prince George's and Anne Arundel County, there are parts of my district, communities, that have too much alcohol availability, and it's a public health problem. There are other parts of the district where it's not a problem. But what this bill does is it enshrines more availability of more liquor all the time till the end of 2022. Now, you know what's going to happen at the end of 2022? They're going to come back in and say, let's do 2023. It worked so well. We made a lot of money. Let's keep the party going. Well, I apologize for being a party pooper, but I think the public health problems of excessive alcohol abuse can't be forgotten in the health crisis of COVID. So, Mr. President, what this amendment does is simply say that we'll let the restaurants do this until the emergency is over. It was an emergency measure. It should not be normalized. So what an amendment does simply is says that the bill, as reported out of committee, which allows local governments to decide if they want to opt in to continuing this practice of expanded access to alcohol, only to do it until the end of the emergency as declared by the governor. It seems the obvious reasonable compromise. We've done it in the emergency. When the emergency is over, we get rid of that emergency measure. We go back to worrying about our public health pandemic of alcohol abuse. I move the amendment.
Senators move the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you. And I share your passion, and I appreciate your comments. And I personally, both my parents were alcoholics, so I understand where it comes from. Thankfully, they recovered from that. But one of the assertions there is binge drinking, as if somebody would go to a restaurant, purchase food to get alcohol, when they could go to the package store and get the same alcohol cheaper. So I think we're talking apples and oranges there. Second thing, this bill did come in enshrined. It was permanent. And what we did is we, as a committee, negotiated with that, and we brought it back to a 2-year to look at it and evaluate it. We understand our restaurants have really been impacted very hard. And not only that, but the committee said we understand the health risks. So if a county puts in a law, in this bill it says they have to take in consideration both the economic impact and to protect public health. So when they're making that decision whether they want to opt in or opt out, they have to consider that. Now, I'm not sure if your concern is the statewide or specific to your county, but there are a lot of jurisdictions that want to help these businesses, because as soon as the pandemic's over, it's not like they're going to be completely whole. They have gone through a whole year of devastation. So the committee's will is that we look at it, we come back after sunset, and see if they're restored at that point. And then the other thing, the last thing I'll say is, you have to opt into this program. And then after the emergency is over, your county can opt out and become completely out of this. So you already have that option in the bill. And we think it's sufficient the way it is, and unfortunately we reject the amendment.
Floor leader, thank you very much, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 30. We have a couple of folks who want to speak on this, so we'll let's see where we get. Chair recognizes the senator from Capital City.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. On the amendment, colleagues, I think we all know I represent quite a few restaurants in the capital city that we all enjoy. They've been hit hard during this pandemic, despite a lot of my constituents continuing to go to those restaurants, take out food, but the restaurants are suffering, and they're going to continue to suffer even when the state of emergency is lifted. It's going to be a long haul to get back to life as normal and to get the revenues for those locally owned small businesses back to where they were. I think the bill as amended provides enough flexibility for those counties to opt in, for those counties to decide just how long they would allow for this special permit grant what have you. I think this is the right balance, and it's the right thing to do for our small businesses. And I've heard from quite a few constituents that it's interesting, some of the policy choices we've made during this pandemic. I think this is one of the more popular ones that folks have asked me to fight for, to try to make permanent. People do enjoy this, being able to go to a restaurant for takeout when they're not comfortable eating indoors, and still be able to take a mixed drink or a beer, or in some way patronize and help those locally owned small businesses continue to thrive. So, Mr. President, I stand with my colleague from Anne Arundel and urge a red vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, Chair recognizes the senator from District 10.
I have a question for the floor leader. Is there currently...
Will the floor leader yield for a question? Yes, Senator may proceed.
Is there currently, or in the bill, a requirement or a protocol to document the age and the identity of the purchaser who's doing it long distance?
Yes, they have to be 21 years old and they have to provide ID.
How do you know they aren't buying it for younger people?
I guess that's the same in all of Maryland. I mean,
that's one of my concerns if you're going to make this permanent and go beyond.
But we're not making this permanent. This is only a 2-year sunset, and they're going to come back and report to us.
So how is the ID verified?
The person who is giving it at the carryout, they have to require ID to be shown, and then they'll look at it.
But I was talking not when you're there personally to carry it out, but when you do it long distance and they're going to deliver it to you.
Right, same process. It has to be an employee, and they will go there and they have to show ID to that person to get it.
Could there be something that they would sign when they get it other than just their name, some statement to indicate that I understand that under Maryland law this can't be used to divert it to kids?
No, it's not in there.
I think there ought to be, because when you carry this on, I do think that the senator from College Park makes a point that a lot of times you'll end up with just kids with it.
Senator, with the floor leader yield to the senator from District 33.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Senator from District 10, your concerns were echoed in the committee on a regular basis. In the bill, the delivery person must be 21. In some jurisdictions, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds can serve liquor. In this bill, must be 21. Number two, they must go through the Alcohol Awareness Program, which is an attempt to train the delivery people on what to look for. Make sure they understand false proof. Make sure they understand what they're doing. And Senator, I have to share with you, it is so disturbing to see older siblings buying cases of beer, walking out and putting them in the cars of young kids. We see it every single day today in our regular retail stores. But as the floor leader said, it's going to be pretty tough for some 19-year-old kid who can buy a 24-pack for $15 to buy one drink from a restaurant for $15. So we understand your concerns. It is as we have discussed this morning, it's a problem in Maryland. Underage drinking is a real problem. But we've done what we can to put up, as they say, guardrails. I do support the bill. And to the senator who made the amendment, vote against the bill, because then when the emergency order is done, the carryout's done. We don't need that amendment. We just need 24 people to say it's not necessary. When the emergency order ends, the carryout ends. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. And the chair's questions were answered? It appears so. All right, chair recognizes the senator from District 19.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I rise in support of the senator's amendment. And the reason for that is that the alcohol industry's appetite will never be satiated. Never. This industry is too big, too powerful, and they will always be knocking on the door of this legislature to expand and create greater opportunity to push their product on our residents. This bill is connected to the pandemic. As such, it should be limited to the emergency order for this pandemic. But the industry has got their tentacles into this bill. It will not terminate with the end of the pandemic. And I can share with you, I absolutely sympathize with every one of our small business owners and our restaurant operators and the suffering they have been going through during this pandemic. But economic development cannot be predicated upon pushing alcohol to our residents. Now, I've been working on issues related to this for over a decade. And I can tell you, every single study on the issue of alcohol availability is connected directly to social harm, and it is linked directly to domestic abuse, to sexual assault, to physical assault, and crime throughout our communities. It's not a matter of, well, it's being sold this way, it's being sold that way. The industry will never be satisfied until they can make sure that alcohol is flowing anywhere and everywhere at every opportunity. I respect the thought process of the sponsor of this amendment. It is a reasonable amendment. If, in fact, we are doing this under the guise of helping these businesses during this state of emergency, then this needs to terminate with the end of that state of emergency. I guarantee you for a fact that if we pass this bill with a date certain, 2 years, when it's going to end, that we will never change that policy, and in 2 years, this body will then pass a bill to allow this to go forward in perpetuity. And that is dangerous, it's a mistake, and we are far too casual as a legislative body as to how we treat alcohol in our state. As horrible as the opioid pandemic is, it pales in comparison to the destruction for public health and public safety that alcohol brings to the people of our state. And for us to just willingly say, okay, alcohol industry, once again, we are going to concede to your wishes, is a policy that I absolutely cannot support. I am willing to accept the notion that we are doing this as a consequence of the pandemic. Let it terminate with the emergency, and then at the appropriate time, when, and I can tell you, I took a look at the testimony. Every public health advocate and organization came in opposition to this bill. This is alcohol industry doing their best to ensure that this is permanent policy. I support the sponsor of the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the, we'll go to Senator who have not yet spoken. We'll come back to the floor leader in just a moment. Chair recognizes Senator from the 47th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise in support of this amendment. Access It is a problem in my community. You all know I typically rise on things around substance abuse, and this is in keeping with that. We are in the midst of a state of emergency, and so I do understand that we have to do things differently. But it needs to end with the state of emergency, which is what this amendment does. And I also would just say to the suggestion that a delivery person is going to be able to judge the age of a youngster. I know, at least in my county, we have liquor inspectors and we have violations in restaurants that we see very frequently. I have no idea how this would be able to be managed. And so for those reasons, I rise in support of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the Lower Eastern Shore, followed by the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm actually hearing from our restaurant owners, not the alcohol industry. I grew up in the restaurant business. I spent this entire interim on bi-weekly calls with the Maryland Restaurant Association, the Ocean City Hotel Motel Restaurant Association members, working with them on their very survival and keeping jobs in those restaurants. Senate Bill 205 is an absolute top priority for the very survival and long-term recovery of our restaurants in each one of your districts. These restaurants were literally shut down. They only had the option for carryout. The governor's executive order allowing restaurants to sell off-premise alcohol with food carryout orders has been an absolute lifeline to restaurants across the state of Maryland, and also for the employees in those restaurants. SB 205 has been worked through with stakeholders, and it's been a painful process. It's been significantly pulled back from the original bill, providing the permanent exemption, which other states are moving forward with. When the governor's emergency order ends, our small businesses in our local communities in each one of our districts, they still have a long road to recovery. Their recovery doesn't end when that executive order is off. We really don't know when these small businesses will return to normal. We surely hope that customers will come back to these restaurants and dine in, but some of them may opt to continue to carry out. And so I ask my colleagues, hearing from your restaurants in your districts, this is a top priority. This has been worked through Senate Bill 205, and I urge you to oppose this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to respond to a remark from the senator from Montgomery County. I usually don't get up on alcohol bills. It's not an issue that rises to the top of my interest. But this bill is not just about the alcohol industry. This is actually about a contradiction within the alcohol industry. You know, the package stores and the distributors, they're not real excited about this because they're afraid they're going to lose business to the restaurants. So in 2 years, my guess is they are going to actively call all of us to say, end the darn thing. So they're concerned that it's going to shift sales from the package stores to the restaurants. And I don't know if that's true or not. But I have heard from restaurants who send home a cocktail or a bottle of wine or a couple of growlers with a meal, and that's become the margin of difference of them staying afloat. And we don't know when the governor's going to end his executive order. He hasn't called me on that. But it's not, I agree, this recovery is not going to happen overnight. And I want those restaurants to continue, at least in my district and I think across the state. And I don't believe, as the floor leader, the subcommittee of the alcohol raised, if people want to buy alcohol, they're going to go to the package store. It's a hell of a lot cheaper. So if we can assist these restaurants for an extra year or two, because we come back next year, I don't see the damage. And I think getting the data from the next 2 years to see if alcoholism goes up or abuse, I'm not sure that abuse happens when someone goes home and buys a six-pack or a case and gets drunk and abuses a family member, or whether it's after they get a bottle of wine and 2 salmon dinners from Franklin's restaurant. I don't know that answer. And I think we can use the next year or two to gather some of that data. And I don't know if this will shift where the sales take place or increase the sales. So I think your concerns are valid. And I think in terms of public health, if we need to take stronger measures across the board, pandemic or not, I want to have that conversation, and I think our committee would want to have that conversation. But I'm not sure by telling the package stores and distributors we think the restaurants should have more flexibility for a little longer. I don't think it's the industry getting their hooks in, because I really do think this is a contradiction within the alcohol industry and where it's sold, and I don't know if sales will go up or just get transferred. So in the short term, and I think 2 years is pretty short term, I'm going to side with the recovery for our small businesses. Some will say it's going to harm other small businesses like the package stores. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think the presentation by the subcommittee chair is appropriate. I think he talked about the nuance of this legislation. If someone doesn't want to do it, it's been said in Baltimore City, it's gotten like Mardi Gras, totally out of hand. If they want to stop it, they can stop it with this bill. People do not have to go into this framework. So we left flexibility. The committee put in language to say it's got to balance public health and recovery. We think it's balanced. It has been worked, and I can tell you the Senator from the Lower Shore and I don't frequently agree, but on this one we do agree. So thank you, Mr. President.
The beauty of the Senate, every issue, right? All right, any further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from Frederick City.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm coming from an unusual perspective. I grew up in the restaurant business with my mother, and I did not grow up with my father, who left home and was a terrible alcoholic at 5. We had a local bill like this, which I withdrew for the state bill, and I brought up at home an amendment very similar to the one that the good senator brought up, because I had concerns about people carrying it outside and drinking on the streets and things like that. But we talked it through just as the committee did. And I changed my opinion, and I also withdrew the bill for the state bill. There are people that order a dinner home or to get it themselves or have it delivered. Believe me, if they're paying $8, $9, $10 for a glass of wine, $10, $12 for a cocktail, they're not drinking heavy, or they'd be at the package store getting their own bottle and fixing it at home. So I don't think this is going to contribute to alcoholism. When I look back, maybe if my father had stayed home and ordered a $12 drink instead of hanging out in a club and drinking $3 drinks all night, our situation would have been different. So I think this bill helps the restaurants, and we're a very strong restaurant city, and I think it's going to do a great deal for them. I don't think it's going to contribute to the alcohol problem, because those that are bad drinkers are going to go buy it cheaper and drink a lot more of it. So it does help the restaurants. And I like the 2-year provision, because if the one concern I have works out, we can kill it at the end of that time. But I really don't think it's going to be a major problem. And So I oppose the amendment and support the bill strongly.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the maker of the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I appreciate everyone's perspective on this. Just want to make a couple of points. One is, this is not a dispute between protecting public health and helping restaurants. We can do both of those. But we don't need to put this past the emergency to do it. I mentioned all the aid that the state, the federal government, and local governments have provided. I have a bill, actually, that we had a hearing on, I guess, last week in finance, designed around what Anne Arundel County has done to try to help small restaurants. We can provide aid to restaurants. We can help restaurants keep in business. We can help restaurants come back strong without having to have this special benefit go beyond the emergency. Point number one. It's not a choice. We can do both. Number two, we've talked during the pandemic, and my friend, the chair of EHE, we talked about climate change, about following the science. We all have anecdotes of our experience with this. I am not a teetotaler. I'm not as eloquent as the senator from Montgomery County on the dangers of alcohol, very frankly. And I have bought meals and alcoholic beverages from restaurants during this period and taking it out. So I'm not Carrie Nation on this issue. But I do say follow the science. The science is absolutely clear that expanding availability expands problem. That is the science. If I may, Mr. President, I'd see if the floor leader would yield for a question.
Will the floor leader yield for a question? Appears so. Senator may proceed.
There was reference to seeing what the experience will be if we extend this out past the emergency. I didn't see the study provision in the bill. Who is going to do this study?
I don't believe there's a study in here.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that because it was reference to we're going to study the results, but there's no study. With that, Mr. President, colleagues, it's a reasonable amendment. All it says is let's keep this option open until the emergency is over. Then let's get back to the regular order. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, question is on the amendment. Did the floor leader? Yep. All right, on the amendment. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Roll call.
Appears the noes have it. The senator's amendment fails. Are there other amendments to the bill? Or so the senator had another amendment?
I do have another amendment, but I don't have it yet. So I'd like to special order this until we can get it.
Look, I think the amendment office is backed up, and we got a message from them this morning. That's why there's a little bit more leeway on this. If the floor leader is not opposed, if we could put it behind, still take it up today, but put it behind the two others that are at the end of the calendar today. No issues there? Okay. Without objection, so
Thank
ordered.
you. Thank you.
The clerk will read the next bill. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to go to the special order calendar. This is the executive nominations. The clerk will read the report.
Executive nominations report number 6. Question is, will the Senate advise and consent to the nominations of the executive?
All right, Chair recognizes the chair of the Executive Nominations Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move favorable on the gubernatorial appointments in report number 6 of the Senate Executive Nominations Committee.
All right, we have report number 6. The question before the body is, shall the Senate advise and consent to the nominations of the executive? Senators, please take a look at the list. Are there any nominations that senators would like to separate out? Excuse me. Thank you. Excuse me, sorry. All right, if not, question before the body is advise and consent. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, the Senate affirmatively advises and consents to the nominations of the executive. I think we're now again on the special order calendar. The clerk read the next bill.
Senate Bill 622, Senator Edwards, income tax, subtraction modification, donations to diaper banks and other charitable entities. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate, these couple that were on this calendar were according to our chairman, going to be able to move forward with today. Senate Bill 622 creates a subtraction modification against the state income tax for a person who makes a qualified donation to a diaper bank or certain charitable entities. The fiscal impact is minimal. The maximum value of the subtraction modification is $1,000. First Amendment is there's two amendments. First Amendment is technical. The Second Amendment requires a comptroller instead of the Department of Human Services to administer the subtraction modification. I'll move the two amendments and committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 622 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 769, Senator Hester, income tax credit for Finicin donation, alterations, extension, and testing for chronic wasting disease. Questions on the adoption of the favorable report.
Question is on the favorable report. Chairman of the committee, Chair Budget and Tax, did we do this report yet? This was another one, I think, on the tax credit issue.
Senator Edwards, do you have this one? Sorry, I apologize, Mr. President.
Oh, no worries. Chair recognizes the senator from the 1st District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate. Senate Bill 769 deals with deer. It alters the venison donation tax credit by increasing the value of the tax credit and extending the tax credit program through June 30, 2028. The Department of Natural Resources must report to the General Assembly on the testing of deer brought to deer processes for chronic wasting disease. There has been an amendment offered, Mr. Chairman. I think it's I don't know if you have it up there.
Senator, can we adopt the report first, and then we'll take up a potential amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Question before the body is on the adoption of the favorable report. Any discussion of the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report is adopted. Does it set a committee amendment, or is it a sponsored amendment? How about
it was presented by the senator from Southern Maryland. To me, I think it's a friendly amendment that we really do need to adopt. So,
all right, Senator, let's hear from the senator from the 29th District who has an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. The number of the amendment is 533421-1.
All right, give us just one moment to scan it in, Senator. I don't know how the chair of B&T missed this. Senator may explain the amendment.
So what this bill does is it offers a tax credit for deer that are harvested that are then given to the homeless. And the issue is this only applied to does. So it only applied to deer that were antlerless. What this does is if someone did shoot a buck, that could also be donated to the homeless. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen. We believe this is a very friendly amendment that puts the guys in the same category as the girls. And it was just overlooked because the original bill did not have the bucks in with the does. and I would recommend support of the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion on the Senator's amendment? Any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 679 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 778, Senator Elfrith, Regional Institution Strategic Enterprise Zone Program Alterations. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendment and the favorable report.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, Senate Bill 778 seeks to address a challenge we have. We have a RISE zone program, a Regional Institution Strategic Enterprise Zone program that seeks to help our innovation economy by building on the intellectual innovation coming out of our university campuses. But it's a very underutilized program. The policy tools that the current program uses just aren't kind of fitting into what these businesses need. So this is our attempt to fix the program and get it back on track. So Senate Bill 778 alters the existing program by establishing for qualified businesses a rental assistance grant program, an enhanced biotech investment incentive, and cybersecurity investment incentive tax credit. It limits the RISE zones to 500 acres, which is the kind of current maximum size of a zone. It limits existing income tax and property tax credits to businesses that locate in the RISE zone before January 1, 2023. It expands the purposes of the program, and it terminates the program tax credits effective by January 1st, 2028. This is needed for our universities and the innovation coming out of our universities to actually stay here in Maryland, keep those businesses here in Maryland. So, Mr. President, there's one committee amendment that adds sponsors. I move the committee amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendment. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 778 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Senators, we have an important message from the House. If the clerk could read the message.
House Bill 588, the Speaker, Budget Bill, Fiscal Year 2022, Budget and Taxation. House Bill 589, the Speaker, Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2021, Budget and Taxation.
With the message having been read, we will refer the House's take on the FY22 budget and the BRFA to the Committee on Budget and Taxation. So halfway there for most important constitutional duty there. All right, let's go to, we'll give B&T a break and we will go over to Finance. We've got calendar of second readers. This is calendar 22. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 717, Senator Zucker, State Personnel Collective Bargaining, Exclusive Representative Access to New Employees, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Senator from the 19th District as the floor leader.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 717 alters the process available to an exclusive representative regarding access to newly hired state employees for the purpose of relaying the benefits of joining an employee organization. Specifically, an exclusive representative will be permitted to meet a new employee within the first full pay period. The meeting must be in person, but may also occur via video or similar means. Permitted meeting times are increased. The days that the state must notify an exclusive representative of the starting dates for new employees are also increased. And a time period and means for providing specified employee information to an exclusive representative are established. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment 2 is clarifying. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 717 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 801, Senator Griffith, Labor and Employment Economic Stabilization Act, alterations, favorable with one amendment.
All right, Chair recognizes the senator from the 47th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 801, as amended, alters definitions, thresholds, and notification requirements for employers under the Economic Stabilization Act. The purpose of the act is to provide a quick response to provide employers and employees with services to assist in mitigating the effects on employees when there is a reduction in operations. Specifically, the bill clarifies a reduction in operations to include employer relocation that reduces the total number of employees by 25% or 15 employees. And employees will not be counted if the employee willingly transfers to another site within 30 days. The elected officials notified of a reduction in operation is altered. Lastly, specified employees are exempted from the notification requirements if the notification would have impacted potential business or there is a natural disaster. If the reduction is due to a sale of the business, both the seller and purchaser must provide the notice for purposes of the act, and an employee is considered an employee of both. The amendment is technical, clarifies definitions, further clarifies the provisions of the bill as just described. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendment. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 801 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 837, Senator Kramer, Health, Advanced Care Planning, and Advanced Directives, favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Senate Bill 837 requires the Maryland Health Care Commission to coordinate implementation of advanced care planning programs in the state, which includes adopting and implementing measures requiring that health systems and health care providers encourage individuals to upload, create, update, and make accessible electronic advanced care planning documents through the use of an electronic advanced directive service. In addition, each carrier must offer electronic advanced directives to its members, and the Motor Vehicle Administration must submit a report that provides an update on the status of implementing requirements related to advanced directives. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 deletes a requirement that individuals receiving a COVID-19 vaccine also receive information. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 837 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 857, Senator Hester, Health, Maryland Community Health and Public Safety Center of Excellence, establishment, favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 857 establishes the Maryland Community Health and Public Safety Center of Excellence within the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services. The center's activities include strategic planning, technical assistance, and state and local government coordination for carrying out its purposes. In addition, priorities are established for dispersing any federal funds the center receives and requires local jurisdictions to develop a 2-year community health and public safety plan. The center must produce and update a statewide strategic plan by December 1st, 2021, and each year thereafter. The main purpose of the center is to divert mentally ill people away from the criminal justice system and into crisis services, primarily through the use of a sequential intercept model. The bill and amendments implement recommendations of the Lieutenant Governor's Commission to Study Mental and Behavioral Health State Summit on Behavioral Health and the Justice System. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 alters the name of the center and, as just mentioned, further implements the Lieutenant Governor's Commissioner's recommendations by adding an additional analysis, altering the definition of sequential intercept model, adding to the duties of the center, requiring the designation of selected individuals to oversee the center, adding legislative intent, and adding future responsibilities. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, on the report, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 857 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 914, Senator McCray, Sheriff of Baltimore City, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 914 is a local bill that authorizes full-time sworn law enforcement officers who are deputy sheriffs at a rank of lieutenant or above and court security officers in Baltimore City Sheriff's Office to bargain collectively with the Baltimore City Mayor, the Baltimore City Council, and the Baltimore City Sheriff with respect to specified matters. The bill also established requirements for agreements and procedures for mediation and arbitration of collective bargaining disputes. The bill is supported by the Baltimore City Senators. There are no amendments. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move adoption of a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 914 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, sticking with finance, let's go to number 23, calendar 23. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 286, Senator Augustine, Behavioral Health Crisis Response Services, modifications, favorable.
Recognizes. Yes, Senator from Prince George's is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 286 alters the Behavioral Health Crisis Response Grant Program by altering the criteria for grant proposals and priorities for awarding grants and extending the requirement that the governor provide an appropriation for the program through fiscal 2025, while gradually increasing the required appropriation. It also requires a crisis communication center to coordinate with 911 dispatch or other health hotlines and authorize 911 to dispatch a mobile crisis team, and alters how specified data must be publicly reported and disaggregated. There are no amendments. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 286 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 459, Senator Feldman, Economic Development, Maryland Small Business Innovation Research Technical Assistance Program, alterations, favorable with 2 amendments.
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 459 establishes the Comprehensive Technical Assistance Program within the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, TEDCO. The purpose of the program is to provide comprehensive technical assistance to any business that qualifies for financial assistance under a TEDCO program. TEDCO is also required to provide a detailed description of the implementation of the program in its annual report. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill as introduced and substitutes the program I just described. There's no opposition at the hearing. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 459 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 639, Senator Augustine, Maryland Technology Development Corporation, Inclusion Fund Establishment, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 639 establishes an inclusion fund within the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, also known as TEDCO. The purpose of the fund is to provide capital investment in technology-based businesses that, 1, would qualify for investment under the Builder Fund as provided in regulations of the corporation, and 2, are at least 30% owned by individuals who demonstrate economic disadvantage, and 3, are controlled and managed by an individual or individuals who demonstrate economic disadvantage for at least 1 year from the time of the investment. TEDCO must include information on implementation of the fund in its annual report. Amendment 1 adds sponsors. Amendment 2 alters the purpose of the program as described. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. All in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 639 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 732, Senator Patterson, Economic Development, Maryland Innovation Initiative, University Partnership Pilot Program Establishment, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 732 establishes the Maryland Innovation Initiative University Partnership Pilot Program. The pilot program is administered by that partnership, university partnership, which already exists within the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, TEDCO. The purpose of the program is to expand opportunities at Bowie State University and Frostburg State University for technology validation, entrepreneurial development, and industry engagement. Each university must pay an annual contribution of $50,000 to qualify for participation, and only these universities are eligible to submit project proposals for funding under this pilot program. The governor must include an appropriation of $500,000 in fiscal year 2023 and 2024 for the program. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the universities included. There was no opposition to the committee hearing. Mr. President, I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report. I might also add, I think this was one of the recommendations that came out of the Senate President's Advisory Work Group convened during the interim. In any event, with that, as I say, I move the amendments and adoption of the favorable committee report.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for the observation. The Senator is correct and has moved the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 732 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 783, Senator Hayes, Baltimore City, West North Avenue Development Authority, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 783 established the West North Avenue Development Authority for the purpose of developing a comprehensive neighborhood revitalization strategy for the benefit of the target area and buffer zone in Baltimore City as defined. The bill established provisions governing the membership, procedures, and duties of the authority. The authority must report its strategies to the governor and certain committees of the General Assembly by October 1st, 2023. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 specifies that the president of Coppin State University or the president's designee must serve as the chair of the authority, removes the requirement that the Department of Commerce staff the authority, authorize the authority to manage appropriated funds from Baltimore City or the state, and authorize the authority to modify the boundaries of the target area and the buffer zone by a majority vote. There is no fiscal impact. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendments and the adoption of a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 783 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 824, Senator Hester, Economic Development, Broadband Providers, Joint Trenching and Fee, Building Out Broadband Act of 2021, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee as the
Thank
floor
you,
leader.
Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 824 requires a unit of local government and the Department of Transportation and related entities to allow joint trenching by broadband providers on a non-exclusive and non-discriminatory basis. Joint trenching may be denied under certain circumstances as specified. The bill expressly authorizes local governments to adopt policies to extend broadband access to underserved areas. A local government within the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission's jurisdiction must follow or must allow for review of policies by the Commission. MDOT and the Department of Commerce must also adopt regulations to implement the bill. Amendment number 1 is technical and adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions of the bill dealing with the Rural Broadband Assistance Fund, alters the actions required related to the development of regulations, and requires, to the extent practicable, the state to appropriate federal funding for the purpose of, again, improving broadband adoption in our state. The bill passed unanimously out of the committee, Mr. President. Move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 824 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 846, Senator Benson, Home Energy Assistance, Critical Medical Needs Program, Power to the People, Pilot Program, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you. Senate Bill 846 requires the Office of Home Energy Programs, OHEP, in coordination with the United Way of Central Maryland and the Fuel Fund of Maryland, to establish the Power to the People pilot program. The pilot program will expand access to the Critical Medical Needs Energy Assistance Application Program and provide training for the 211 Maryland United Way Helpline intake specialists and case managers to serve as navigators. The governor must include in the fiscal 2023 and 2024 annual budget $80,000 to OHEP for the pilot program. Funds must be used to hire specified staff. There are no amendments, no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Question on the report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 846 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 933, Senator Benson, Financial Regulation, Access to Banking and Financial Services Reporting, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you. Senate Bill 933 requires the Office of the Commissioner of Financial Regulation to submit a report to the General Assembly by December 31, 2021, analyzing the banking environment in Maryland. The report must, 1, include the number and types of state and federal banks and other financial institutions by jurisdiction. 2, identify banking deserts in the state where citizens have limited access to financial services or are living in areas without a credit union or bank branch. And 3, recommend strategies to ensure residents of underserved jurisdictions have access to financial services. There were no amendments, no fiscal impact, no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Question on the report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 933 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Just as a quick personal privilege, to Senator from Prince George's County, we've been working on this in a neighborhood that I represent in Cherry Hill, and we just this year were able to open the ribbon in the midst of the pandemic on a new Chase Bank that's opening up in Cherry Hill. J.P. Morgan did an expansion project, and it's made a huge difference even in the midst of the pandemic. So look forward to seeing the progress on this one. All right, let's move on over to education, health, and environmental. Oh, no, we do have another finance, I believe. Do we have another finance?
We do.
We do. Number 23. Clerk will read the first bill. 24?
24.
24. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 705, Senator Bidle, State Airports, Commercial Activity, Rental Vehicles, and Peer-to-Peer Car Sharing. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 705 requires the Maryland Aviation Administration, in carrying out its powers and duties with respect to rental vehicles offered by either a rental vehicle company or a peer-to-peer car sharing program, to 1, treat like services as being the same class, 2, provide services and grant privileges in a consistent manner, 3, ensure the terms and conditions of agreements are reasonable and uniform, and 4, take into consideration MAA's long-term investment in the Consolidated Rental Vehicle Facility. The bill also alters the definition of commercial activity in reference to MAA's authority to approve when commercial activity is allowed at an airport it operates, to add specificity and expressly include peer-to-peer car sharing program activities. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment 2 makes technical and clarifying change, specifies that MAA's authority over commercial activity at BWI extends to a commercial zone that's within a 7-mile radius of the main terminal, and requires MAA to establish rules for the conduct of airport-related commercial activity within the zone. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 705 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 754, Senator Hayes, Public Service Commission, damaged, obsolete, or excessive lines fines. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 754 requires the Public Service Commission to convene a work group of interested persons to study damaged, dangling, obsolete, or redundant utility, telecommunication, or other lines, or blight or public nuisance caused by an excessive number of lines or utility poles in Maryland. The Commission must report its findings and recommendations to the General Assembly by December 31st, 2021. Amendment 1 is technical and adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill and substitute the work group as specified. I move the amendments and adoption of a favorable committee report.
Senators, you can let the PSC know they can use my back alley as a case study if they would like. Senators move the 2 amendments and the favorable committee report. Question is on the 2 amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 754 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 856, Senator Hershey, Electric Companies, Billing Information. Favorable.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 856 requires an electric company, on request of a retail electricity customer, to provide the customer historic usage and billing information for at least the previous 12 months. The information must be available as requested by the customer in one of 3 ways. 1, on the company's website, 2, in an electronic searchable PDF, or 3, a physical document sent to the customer at the customer's billing address. There are no amendments. There is no fiscal impact. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 856 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Well done, Finance. Got through those. Let's jump over to Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs. I think we have 2 calendars. We'll start with 27. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 536, Senator King, Montgomery County, stormwater charges, organizations offering agricultural exhibitions. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes Senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We all, not all of us, but many of us have county fairs in our districts, in our counties, and this bill refers to the county fair in Montgomery County. Most of them are nonprofits, and as such, they rely on their revenue coming in from the gate, from the vendors, from the sales that they make. And this past year has been absolutely awful. Most of them have zero revenue coming in. And yet we have one fair in Montgomery County which is subject to the stormwater fee, the rain tax. And it's a burden on a very important part of our community. This bill, as originally submitted, was a local bill from Montgomery County, waiving the stormwater fee. But come to find out, it's against code, against Comar, to single out a single location within a municipality. So this bill is now a statewide bill. It affects all of us. And it waives for 2 years the need to pay the stormwater management fee. There's two amendments. One is technical. The second strikes the language applying the bill to the stormwater charges imposed by Montgomery County, and instead applies the bill to stormwater charges imposed by any municipality. The amendment also adds a 2-year sunset, terminating the bill on June 30th, 2023. Would move the favorable amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to special order this bill until the appropriate time on Monday.
On Monday, are there any objections to the senator's special order? Without objection, so ordered. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 597, Senator Washington, State Board of Social Work Examiner revisions, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Hello, Mr. President. Senate Bill 597, State Board of Social Work Examiners, is a cleanup bill. So just have patience. There are a number of changes to the codes with regulating the licensing of social workers. That's some of what our committee does. The bill, first of all, it renames the Maryland Social Workers Act as the Maryland Social Workers Practice Act. One, it requires an individual employed by the federal government and licensed to practice social work in the state to comply with that act. Number 2, it repeals some obsolete provisions relating to the license of graduate social workers. Number 3, it alters the definition of licensed social worker. Number 4, it alters the number of required hours for supervision for a licensed social worker. Number 5, it redefines Social Worker Rehabilitation Committee as the social worker rehabilitation process. Number 6, it requires the board to include disciplinary history if applicable. Number 7, it specifies that the board must approve certain licenses to provide supervision in accordance with board regulations. And finally, number 8, it increases the penalty for violating any provisions of this act from $5,000 to $10,000. The bill also, as I said, makes a lot of technical and clarifying changes. One of the very good things that it does is that it allows, I think so much of what we've been looking at has to do with delays with COVID and making sure that we're getting social workers and professionals into our communities. So it's allowing a temporary process for people to become, before they become licensed, to actually work. There are 2 committee amendments. One committee amendment is technical, and the second one, and I don't want people to be alarmed, the second one is also sort of technical in that it moves back the time period from submitting criminal records check from 2021 to 2023. If you look at the bill, all of the changes in the provisions are dated as 23. So it's just to make it all everything consistent. And so I ask for the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the 2 amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 597 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 664, Senator Ellis, Education, High School Graduation Requirements, Applications for Student Financial Aid, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes Senator from Charles County as the floor leader.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 664 aims to help
a lot of our high school students getting ready to go into the world as adults, helps them to get into college and to pay for college. In some counties, we have close to 70% of our graduating seniors don't fill out the financial aid form, the free application for financial aid. You know, being a disabled veteran, you know, I left the military with a package, including help for my children. When my children were in middle school, the Veterans Administration, U.S., reached out to my family and said, hey, now it's time to think about college. They helped us, my children, from middle school on, and mentor them. They had people helping them fill out their financial aid forms all the way into college. And so we're not doing that for our high school students in Maryland in an overwhelming amount of children. So this bill aims to do that by setting up several pilot programs. So I want to give you a brief overview of this amended bill. It requires that each county board of education encourage and assist as many high school students as possible in completing and submitting the free application for financial student aid, FAFSA, or the Maryland State Financial Aid application by a specified deadline. Each county board must develop a specific outreach plan and submit the plan to the State Department of Education and create a certain advisory committee and specified committees of the General Assembly to submit reports on their plan. MSD, Maryland State Department of Education, in coordination with the Maryland Higher Education Commission, is required to establish an advisory committee to provide guidance to county boards and high schools with information, resources, and best practices on universal FAFSA and MAFSA completion and planning financial aid for post-secondary education for all Maryland students. The bill provides for the composition, duties, and reporting of the advisory committee. And if it's so pleased, I just want to please the President read a few sentences from the bill, which has a preamble. It says, whereas the state recognizes that completion of the free application for student financial aid is one of the best predictors of whether a high school student will go on to college, and whereas the state recognizes that high school seniors who complete the FAFSA are 84% more likely to immediately enroll in post-secondary education, and FAFSA completion is associated with a 172% increase in immediate college enrollment. And whereas the state recognizes that during the 2019-2020 FAFSA cycle, approximately only 64% of Maryland graduating students completed FAFSA, and that rate varies dramatically by county. In one county, between 25 and 39% of seniors completed the FAFSA. So whereas our partners in Washington, Congress recently passed historic legislation expanding the eligibility for financial aid and dramatically simplifying the FAFSA by reducing the number of questions from, check this out, 108 down to 36, simplifying the calculation process and declaring that all families making less than 175% of the federal poverty level will receive the maximum Pell Grant. Currently, students leave over almost $3 billion on the table with Pell Grants not being claimed. So this help for students will solve that problem. Therefore, I request favorable adoption of the two amendments and the committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 664 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 821, Senator Hester, alcoholic beverages, manufacturer's licenses, and off-site permits, Favorable with 3 amendments. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill has 2 main parts. The first part first clarifies the Modernization Act and consolidates the manufacturing permits. We actually passed that last year unanimously and just ran out of time on the House side. The second part of this bill codifies the executive order for manufacturers dealing with distilleries and breweries to deliver and to ship their products. This is sunsetted after a year and a half. As we well know that they also were hit hard during the pandemic. So to the specifics of the bill, this is an emergency bill that makes various changes to regulation of alcoholic manufacturers in the state. Broadly, the bill repeals specific manufacturer's permits and establishes a manufacturer off-site permit and brewery special event permit. This bill also authorizes a Class 8 farm brewery license to sell beer produced by the license holder for an off-premise consumption and clarifies the amount of the holder of the Class 7 limited beer wholesaler license may sold. Finally, this bill codifies and extends the delivery and shipment privileges of manufacturers currently authorized under the executive order issued in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. There were 3 committee amendments. The first is technical. The second adds a sunset provision terminating delivery and shipment privileges under this bill December 31st, 2022. The third amendment adds provisions restricting beginning January 2023 the amount of beer that the holder of a certain license may sell to each consumer approved off-site permanent event. I move the committee amendments and the favorable report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Questions on the amendments? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, on the report, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is amended, is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 821 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 931, Senator Jackson, Prince George's County School Facilities and Public Safety Surcharges and Reports Sunset Extension, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 931 is a local bill. The bill extends the termination date of Chapter 351 of 2019 from June 30th, 2021 to June 30th, 2024, which established provisional law that reduce or exempt the school facility surcharge for certain housing units in Prince George's County. There are 2 amendments. Number 1 makes technical changes. Number 2 requires Prince George's County to review and make recommendations of whether the level of funding from the school facility surcharge and public safety surcharge is sufficient to meet the need of the county. The little or no financial impact. There was no opposition. And so, Mr. President, I move the 2 amendments and a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 931 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Sticking with Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs, Calendar 28. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 303, Senator Patterson, General Provisions, Commemorative Days, Tuskegee Airmen Commemoration Day, favorable.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 303 is a bill that was before this body last year, and we voted, I believe, 47-0 in support. But basically, the bill requires the governor to annually proclaim the 4th Thursday in March as Tuskegee Airmen Commemoration Day. This proclamation must urge educational, cultural organizations to observe Tuskegee Airmen Commemoration Day. There's no financial impact. I should tell this body, though, that in 2007, former President George W. Bush awarded this group with the Congressional Gold Medal. So with that, Mr. President, I move for adoption Senate Bill 303.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 303 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Excellent. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 762, Senator McCray, Maryland Electricians Act revisions, favorable with 2 amendments.
Mr. President.
Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been dealing with multiple levels of licensing of our professional folks out there, and the same thing happens with electricians. Right now, our electricians have to go county to county to get licensed. This bill creates a statewide license for licensed master, journeyman, and apprentice electricians beginning July 1, 2021, and instead requires a state license for each of these classifications. Now, the local county or the local municipality may continue to issue or begin issuing local registrations for these classifications, subject to specific requirements. If the state has not enacted a legislation establishing a licensing program for individuals who provide or assist in providing low voltage electrical services by December 1st, 2024, the Maryland Department of Labor must enact regulations to do so. The low voltage is your computer wiring and other video wiring, not necessarily hooked up to the grid. This bill has 2 amendments. The first one is technical, and the second clarifies that those people who perform solar installations on your roof, who are hoisting the panels up, who are wiring together, is not covered by this requirement. But it does say that once the electrical wires are to be connected to the grid, at that point, a licensed electrician master, a licensed journeyman, or a licensed apprentice must be on site. Move the 2 favorable amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 762 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 764, Senator Washington, Work Group on Adaptive Reuse of Vacant Commercial Spaces, favorable with 1 amendment.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill comes at the request of our Joint Committee on Ending Homelessness. Much of what we've done over the term of our committee has been to really remove the barriers for individuals moving into homelessness. For the duration of our committee, we've also been very concerned and understand that not only do we need to make sure that we're removing barriers for homeless youth, for veterans, and for other populations, we frankly have a dearth of affordable housing in the state of Maryland. We reviewed the Maryland Housing Needs Assessment, and there was a 10-year strategic plan, and here are just some of the highlights. When we're looking at our pre-existing inventory, there is a shortage of about 85,000 units for extremely low poverty households. So that's a shortage. Between 2020 and 2030, Maryland will add nearly 100,000 new households who will be earning less than half the median. So our increase in population are going to be lower income individuals, and we have a deficit of low income housing. Out of 167,000 severely cost burdened rental households, that means that you're paying more than 40% of your income towards your rent, which many people are spending up to 60%, that for those, more than 120,000 have extremely low incomes, and they are at risk of losing housing and then therefore becoming homeless. So we knew as a committee that we have to begin to address this. Additionally, we know that COVID and for other circumstances, there's an increase in vacant commercial spaces. And so we were reviewing several recommendations. We had people come in from national entities, the National Conference of State Legislatures, and a number of individuals. And we thought, wouldn't it be great to really figure out how we can reuse and convert vacant commercial properties, not just into homeless shelters, but perhaps also into low-income housing. So we wanted to not rush to judgment in terms of what would be the best strategy. And so we are asking the body to support us creating a work group. The work group is made up of a number of different individuals. You'll look at it from private sector as well as nonprofit organizations. And we will be exploring these issues from now through November 30th. There is one committee amendment, and that amendment adds 6 individuals to the task force from various sectors and substitutes a member from a financial institution with a member representing a credit union to the task force. I ask for your adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, chair recognizes Senator from Prince George's, Anne Arundel.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Will the floor leader use for a question?
Yes.
Will this study include potential uses for schools?
So this is, we're focusing on commercial spaces, but certainly we could talk about
No, that's what I meant. I meant converting empty commercial space into schools.
No, it's not contemplated in this. It's really looking at privately owned commercial spaces. But I wouldn't. I mean, I guess if you're interested in that, we could see if there's a way for us to.
Yeah,
look at that as well.
I've seen in Maryland and elsewhere in the country, commercial space converted very effectively into schools.
Right.
Meaning getting school capacity open faster.
Right.
Using existing, often good locations. There are all kinds of good arguments for it. I would hope that this group would be open to those kinds of uses of empty commercial spaces, because what's happening with commercial space, our communities are being shrunk in terms of community space.
So you're not talking about converting a school into a you're talking about converting a commercial space into the school. Sure. Well, I mean, if it's an adaptive reuse,
Amen.
Why not?
Great. Thank you.
Thank
you
you
for the bill.
All right. On the amendment, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 764 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 836, Senator Bidle, State Board of Dental Examiners, disciplinary action, disclosure requirements, and licensee profiles, favorable with 2 amendments.
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 836 has to do with disciplines of dentists. We had a terrible problem in Anne Arundel County with a physician who basic out-and-out malpractice for hundreds of our constituents in Anne Arundel County. Starting in 2012, there were complaints against this dentist, and it wasn't until 2019 that the dental board took aggressive action to seek his withdrawal of his license. This bill, as presented, was allowing the Board of Dental Examiners, the oversight group, to provide additional tools to get into the practice, to see records, to interview claimants. And it was a very appropriate bill, but our good friends over at the Attorney General said it went a little bit too far, balancing the need for transparency and the need for protection on the HIPAA side and things of that nature. So the bill was adjusted. There's 2 amendments. The first is technical. The second amendment removed all the language proposed in the bill and substitutes the creation of the State Board of Dental Examiners Disciplinary Process and Actions Task Force. This will get together the critical people who are involved with these issues, legislators, administrators, advocates for dental associations, to come together to talk about how do we find a way to address in an effective manner people who are hurting others. We're looking for more tools in the toolbox from this task force. I expect we will see regulatory change, as well as recommendations for legislative recommendations the following session. Mr. President, I move the two amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion?
Mr. President.
Yes, it's Senator from District 5 on the amendments.
May I ask the floor leader if he'd yield for a question?
Will the floor leader yield?
So I'm just clarifying, this is now a task force, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, the issue sounds interesting. I saw a lot of the opposition and you were explaining, so it's just a task force to try to get all the parties together.
Much of the opposition was because we wanted to give the Board of Examiners the ability to go in and see some very confidential information.
But we need to be careful with that. So
we have to be careful, but they did say there's a public benefit to that, but we have to find a way to thread the needle, and that's what the task force is all about. How do we get tools necessary, subpoena, investigation, and protecting both sides of this issue?
I asked the question, thank you. I asked the question because in many years ago, there was concerns about the board being too intrusive and too discriminatory against dentists that were using certain types of practices. And so I always just keep an eye on it, but that's good.
But Senator, before you sit down, I have one interesting thing from the file.
Yes.
This dentist had recorded complaints from citizens. When he renewed his license on 2 different occasions, he failed to disclose the complaints.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And they issued the license, renewed the license anyway. That's a problem with the system, which I'm sure the task force will fully develop and address. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the amendments, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 836 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 922, Senator Lamb, Office of Legislative Audits, Acceptance and Investigation of Allegations of Fraud, Waste, and Abuse, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill was filed by request of the Joint Audits and Evaluation Committee, working with the Director of Legislative Audits. This bill has been heavily amended, so I'll try to weave the amendments in so that this makes sense. The bill, as drafted, generally expanded the authority and responsibilities of the Office of Legislative Audits with respect to investigations or acts of allegations of fraud, waste, or abuse of state resources. It would have allowed OLA to compel, by subpoena or otherwise, the production of private and public records and the appearance of witnesses under oath for purposes of an investigation. OLA may coordinate an investigation with the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of the State Prosecutor and other state and local law enforcement units and prosecutorial agencies. A law enforcement unit must cooperate and share information with the employees of OLA as needed to further investigation. There is an amendment that struck most of what I just said. There is also in the bill provisions to maintain a fraud hotline for the reporting of allegations of fraud, waste, and abuse of state resources. Each unit of state government must post and distribute specified information prepared by OLA relating to the reporting of fraud, waste, and abuse of state resources and report to OLA instances of possible criminal or unethical conduct as specified. That is retained in the bill. There are 2 committee amendments. The first one makes technical changes. The second amendment, as I mentioned, strikes the first portion of the bill, but retains the requirement that that there be a hotline that's maintained and also publicized within the various departments and agencies within the state, and also includes an amendment to have a reporting requirement from OLA to the Joint Audits Committee, and lastly, requires OLA to consult with the Office of Attorney General and the Office of State Prosecutor to develop statutory language to enhance OLA's authority in investigations of fraud, waste, and abuse. Those are the amendments in the committee report. Move the favorable committee report and the 2 committee amendments.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 922 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, Senators, we're going to get through some budget and tax. We'll do a little bit on budget and tax. We'll come back to the calendar of special orders that were at the beginning of the day. We'll see what time it is at that point. We will probably adjourn for the day today to come back into a new legislative day later this evening. Let's see how far we can get in the next 20 minutes and see where things are. But let's go with B&T number 15. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 259, Chair Budget and Taxation Committee, Department of Transportation, Grant Anticipation Revenue Vehicle Bonds, calculation of debt limit, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 259 expands the authority of Maryland Department of Transportation and the Maryland Transportation Authority to issue additional grant anticipation revenue vehicle bonds, which we know as Garvey bonds, backed by future federal aid. Specifically, the bill authorizes MDOT and MDTA to issue such debt as long as the aggregate outstanding and unpaid principal amount of the debt does not exceed $750 million as of June 30 of any year. There are 2 committee amendments. The first committee amendment is technical. The second committee amendment restricts the use of the bond proceeds to certain projects. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 259 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 803, Senator Edwards, Economic Development, Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Board and Fund Establishment, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate. Senate Bill 803 establishes the Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Program Board and Fund. Tri-County Council for Western Maryland must provide staff for the board and administer the fund. The purpose of the fund is to provide grants for capital infrastructure projects and business development projects that improve economic conditions in the region. It may only be used for that purpose and for administrative expenses. A council member, county, local entity within the member county may apply for grant funding as specified. Bill terminates September 30th, 2026. The definition of Western Maryland in this bill is Washington, Allegheny, and Garrett counties. There are 2 amendments. First makes technical changes. The second reduces the required funding to $7.5 million, while stating that it is the intent that it be funded at a total of $15 million. Move the adoption of 2 committee amendments and favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 803 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 919, Senator Galligan, Horse Racing, Fair Hill Natural Resources Management Area, favorable with 1 amendment.
Yes, Senator from District 2 is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh, 6, I'm sorry. Yes, sorry.
That's
Please.
okay, thank you. Senate Bill 919 requires the governor to include an appropriation of $1.3 million for the Fair Hill Improvement Fund for fiscal 23 through 27 in the annual budget. The money appropriated to the fund must be used exclusively for the operations and maintenance of the physical facilities located within the special event area of the Fair Hill Natural Resource Management Area. In addition, the bill also alters specific requirements regarding horse racing at the Fair Hill Natural Resource Management Area. There are 1 amendment. The committee amendment clarifies the amount that is dedicated for the racing and distributed to the Fair Hill Improvement Fund. In addition, the committee amendment increases the mandate appropriations for fiscal 23 of $1.8 million, specifically how the increase must be used. Move the adoption of the committee report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendment. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 919 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 943, Senator Gazzoni, University of Maryland Strategic Partnership Act of 2016, appropriations and degree and credential programs alterations, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 943 provides additional funding for the 2 centers created under the University System of Maryland Empower Strategic Partnership by $2.5 million, and to add to the program areas of quantum technologies, advanced computing, and information technologies to the mission of the University of Maryland Center for Economic and Entrepreneurial Development. In addition, for fiscal years 23 through 27, we will continue a program that's already existing, $4 million a year to the University System of Maryland office to increase estimated funding guideline attainment levels of University System of Maryland institutions as provided. There are 2 amendments. The first makes technical changes. The second alters the funding and strikes a provision that would have required certain funding to be included in the base budgets. Move the adoption of the amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 943 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bit. Oh, we're going to go to 16. Clerk will read the bill on that calendar.
Senate Bill 926, Senator Quarterman, Economic Development, Maryland Stadium Authority, Hagerstown Multi-Use Sports and Events Facility, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 926 authorizes the Maryland Stadium Authority to issue up to $59.5 million in bonds for the purpose of financing, acquisition, construction, renovation, and related expenses in connection with the Hagerstown Multi-Use Sports and Events Facility, subject to specified requirements. The bill establishes a fund to implement the bill and pays for related expenses incurred by MSA, and requires, beginning in fiscal 2023, an amount sufficient to finance the project to be transferred from the fund from an existing distribution of state lottery funds to the Maryland Stadium Authority. There are 2 amendments. The first is technical. The second alters the funding requirement, requires a certain agreement be entered into prior to the issuing of bonds, and adds a reporting requirement. Move the adoption of the favorable report and the amendments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 926 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. The next B&T, calendar 17. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 196, Chair, Budget and Taxation Committee, Economic Development, Research and Development Tax Credit Alterations, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 196 extends the termination date for the Research and Development R&D tax credit to June 30th, 2025. The bill also alters the tax credit by, number 1, eliminating the basic credit, number 2, maintaining the total amount of credits at $12 million, but only for the growth tax credits that can be awarded in each tax year. Number 3, requiring the Department of Commerce to set aside $3.5 million for the total tax credits awarded annually to qualified small businesses. Number 4, limiting to $250,000 the maximum maximum value of the tax credit. And number 5, defining net book assets for the purpose of determining small business eligibility. The bill takes effect July 1st, 2021 and applies to tax years 21 through 25. There are no amendments, and I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 196 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 413, Senator Gazzoni, Maryland Legal Services Corporation funding, abandoned property, favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 413 increases from $2 million to $8 million the required distribution from the state's unclaimed property fund to the Maryland Legal Services Corporation. No amendments, unanimous vote out of the committee. Move the adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 413 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 841, Senator Hershey, Property Tax, Solar Energy Systems, favorable with 3 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from the capital city as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 841 seeks to incentivize community solar projects, particularly on rooftops. It alters the assessment and taxation of specified solar energy personal property by authorizing local governments to, 1, set a specific property tax rate on specified solar systems, and 2, exempt specific solar energy systems that are installed on a structure. The bill also establishes a new class for purposes of assessing structures and prohibits the assessment of specified solar energy systems to include any income derived from those systems. There are 3 committee amendments, Mr. President. The first makes technical changes. The second clarifies that these provisions apply to community solar energy generating systems as defined by law. And the last amendment strikes the language that would have required an exemption and instead authorizes counties to provide such an exemption. I move adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, chair recognizes bill sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill amendments lie over under the rules.
Senator's motion is in order. Bill and the amendments will lay over under the rule. All right, senators, let's get back to the special order calendar. Hopefully we have amendments that are needed. These are the calendars from earlier today. I believe we are starting the special orders. So I think we're at 202. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 202, Senator Kelly, Correctional Services, Parole, Life, Imprisonment. Question is on the adoption of the floor amendment from Senator Reedy.
All right, senators, the question before the body is the senator from District 5's amendment. District 5's amendment. Do we need a discussion about the amendment? Question is on the amendment. If not, chair recognizes Minority Whip.
Yes, I'd like to speak on this.
Senator may proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much. So what the amendment does in front of us is the amendment would restore back to 25 years the amount of time maximum that someone would have to serve before they are parole eligible. And I think that's important because what the amendment says is if you commit the most heinous crimes, which is the first-degree murder of a child, you shouldn't be eligible before 25 years. Quite frankly, under the bill right now in front of us, it's a hard 20. That hard 20 is the same as second-degree murder. So already under the bill, the law is somewhat degraded already, the bill in front of us, even with the amendments, because in Maryland, if you commit a second-degree murder, you serve half your time, which is a 40 on a second degree, it would put you eligible at a 20-year. So if we don't take this amendment, not only will a first-degree murderer be eligible essentially around the same amount of time, but the more heinous crimes will be eligible at a minimum of 2.5 years earlier than they are now, and they will not, under our law, receive any excessive time. So I think this amendment is actually in keeping, because the current law says 25 years. We should at least keep that for these most heinous people that would cause injury to a child, a first-degree premeditated murder of a child. So I would urge passage of the amendment.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the amendment. Any further discussion on the amendment? Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask the members of the body to reject the amendment. I want to explain something because I feel that we're getting far afield from what this bill actually does. I reiterate, the bill is to take the governor out of a final parole approval. Now, under current law, there is a possibility that people that are serving life with the possibility of parole sentences are serving a sentence of possibly as little as 15 years. Those people have never, ever had a parole approval at that point. Part of the reason that we're here is because people are serving 50, 60 years and never getting a chance for release, even if they were sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. And so, here's what I need to clarify. What this bill does is increases the sentence, the possibility of release at 15 years to 20 years, and allows for no diminution credits. It does nothing whatsoever to impact or change a sentence that would be a 25-year sentence. That's really a non-issue under the bill. If there's a sentence that is 25 years, it's going to be a sentence of 25 years. The option for parole is going to be whether or not that sentence included a possibility of parole or not. So please, can we focus on what this bill does? Since 2008 or something like that, there's been an issue with people that were sentenced to life with the possibility of parole not getting an option to get released, even though they either took a plea or they agreed to a sentence in a plea deal where they would get a possibility of parole. But ever since 1995 in Maryland, governors were not allowing those paroles. So this bill is to take the politics out of that and let the parole commission do what the parole commission does. This isn't about changing sentences or enhancing or decreasing sentences, even though that's what the bill does. It increases the possibility of 15 years to 20 years with no dim credits. But it's about letting the parole commission, and under this bill we require a majority of members of the parole commission to make that decision. All this bill does, I repeat, is remove the governor from having to have final approval, which the maker of the amendment has already agreed, he agrees with in concept. So I'd ask the body to resist this amendment because I believe the issue that's being raised by it is a red herring. This bill does not influence that at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for that clarification. We're going to go back to the maker of the amendment, but if we could just, if conversation senators in the back, if we could please lower the volume, please give our attention to the speaker, whoever has the floor in the Senate. So the chair recognizes the maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make it very clear. I'm offering this amendment because this bill changes current law as it relates to these folks who have committed first-degree rape, first-degree sexual offense, or first-degree murder of a child under the age of 13. It takes their mandatory sentence from 25 to where they can be considered for parole at 20 years. So I'm very concerned about that. Apparently right now it's mandatory 25, but there's some ability to get credits to get you to 22 or 23 years when you're up for parole, but we're still with this bill reducing that to 20. I just want to be sure we're doing the 25 years for this group of people who this is obviously prospective, the amendment, anybody in the future that would be convicted of a first-degree murder, rape, or sexual offense of a minor under the age of 13. I want to be sure that they're doing the 25 minimum. I understand the larger issues around the bill, and the floor leader talked about that, and that's a separate debate in my view. I just want to be sure in the bill we're keeping this sentence where it has been since we passed Jessica's law in 2007. Thank you, Mr. President. I ask the body for their support for the amendment.
All right, question is on the amendment. On the amendment, chair recognizes the senator from the 34th district.
Thank you, Mr. President. In support of the amendment, to say that all this does is pull the governor out, that's one of the old, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? That's a major step. Currently, all the language in here, all the language in this bill, and this law, all the current language is most of it's just superfluous because under the current system, it's all up to the governor. It's up to the governor's whim. And that's why a lot of us have said, that's probably not a good system to put up but it's all up to the governor. And so people haven't really focused. This body has not focused, in my opinion, in a lot of the amendments to this on what's the real impact, because the governor was in there. And the governor the governor called the shots, that sitting governor. And people knew that sitting governor was not going to release somebody that the political will would not see fit to release. We're taking that out. We're basically rewriting this entire statute now, because pulling that governor out, now we are the political body that stands between the prisoner who committed first-degree murder and freedom. We are that body. We can no longer say, hey, it's the governor's call. The governor is out of the system, and we are now the only political body that stands between a first-degree murderer and the term of their imprisonment. So as we look at that, it's just not sufficient for us to say, well, we'll just kind of pass it on to the parole board. Wait, they weren't elected. They're not policy makers. They're not subject to the voters, the will of the voters. That's us, folks. We are the policy makers here. And to say, well, we're just going to kind of trust the parole committee. No, it's us. It's in our heads. If whatever we say the term is, that's the term. And to say, well, the parole board can delay it beyond that, that's not where we are. We're not beyond. That's not the issue. What the parole board can do. It's what does this body say. I support the amendment. Thank you.
All right, on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed?
Roll call.
Senators request a roll call. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 26 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. Are there any further amendments to the bill or title? Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Mr. President, I have an amendment.
If the senator could give us the amendment number.
49.
Senator, just one moment.
Sure.
Senator from the 27th District.
Yes, Mr. President. I should have been red on that.
From green to red.
Yes,
any objections? If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator from the 34th District has an amendment?
Yes, Mr. President. It's 493329/1.
Thank you, Senator. Just give us one moment to scan it in. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, colleagues, this amendment, what it does, I'll add in the usual standard predicate for this body. It's pretty simple. What it does is that currently, if the way the bill sits before us, if you've committed a crime, if you're sitting in the DOC now, or you commit a murder between now and October, the law says that you will serve 15 years less any dim credits, diminishing credits. That means you get various credits for being abiding by the various rules of the DOC and for achieving various educational milestones and the like. So you'll do 15 years less those, we'll call them good time credits, which could put you at 11 and a half years. That's people currently serving. So their law says 15 years less the diminishing credits. Now for people who commit a murder after October, this coming October, theirs is different. Theirs says you're not eligible for parole until you've served 20 years. 20 years. And it's silent on the issue of diminishing credits and confinement credits. So we have two different systems there. I think you would have to agree with me that a law that allows you to serve as little as 11 and a half years for first-degree murder screams for justice, for an amendment so it can be somehow achieve justice, rather. And so what this bill does is it says, so it's kind of complicated because we can't change a sentence. We can't just say, well, for the people currently there, we're going to change you from 15 to 20. We're not allowed to do that. So what this proposes to do is we're going to leave you in the current system where the governor has a say-so until you've served 20. And once you've served that 20, you're going to be in the same position as everybody else who commits a murder after October 1, 2021. Everybody would have to serve 20 years before they're eligible for parole. Pretty basic. Everybody has to serve 20 years before you're eligible for parole. That's my amendment.
Senator, is this constitutional?
It is constitutional, constitutional, Mr. President, because what it says is we can't change the 15 to a 20. If you look on page 2 of the bill, we can't say you have to serve 20 years. But what we can say is, you're going to stay in the current system until you've served 20 years. Then we can move you over. Moving you over actually reduces your sentence because now you don't go through the governor. Once you've served 20 years, governor's out. That's all this thing says. So it leaves the governor in, it leaves you in the current system until you've served 20 years, which people who've already done 20 years, all it says is the governor's out. But if you haven't served 20 years, you're going to stay in the old system with the governor until you reach 20 years, and then the governor will be out. The new folks, we can do whatever we want because they haven't yet been sentenced.
Let's hear from the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask the body to resist this amendment. The maker of the amendment mentioned in the beginning of his argument in favor of the amendment that any law that would allow someone to serve only 11 and a half years screams for a change or screams for justice. Well, for I don't know how many years, this has been the law. The 15 years under this bill that allows for dim credits has been the law. What this bill does is actually increase that now to 20 years plus no diminution credits. Now, the purpose of the bill is to stop politicizing these decisions and have people assessed on their individual criterion. Be clear that this is once a judge has made a decision and then the judge's sentence is imposed and the person then is serving the sentence imposed by the judge, and then once they have completed under this bill 20 years, no dim credits, under current law 15 years, but under this bill 20 years, no dim credits, then they can be considered for parole. And all this does is say that we're going to let the parole commission make the decisions that they're appointed to make. They have not had a history of releasing people too soon. And let me say this, there is no reason to think that someone that currently is in there is somehow going to slip through a loophole and get out in 11 and a half years when that has never been the case before. And so I offer that this is a red herring issue designed to confuse people and really just play to those worst fears of ours that we are somehow doing something that is going to be soft on crime or allow bad people to get out earlier. I'd like to remind the body at this stage that Maryland is actually a state that has, according to Justice Policy Institute, that incarcerates more people and for longer times than other states in the country. And so one of the reasons we have to do this is we have to fix Maryland system to make it more just and make it more fair, and so that we're not among the most carceral states with the greatest mass incarceration for longest amounts of time. So I want to, and while I'm at it, when we talk about, as the maker of the amendment says, this first degree, I don't want to be confusing or too complicated here, but we're not always talking about a principle in the first degree. We're oftentimes talking about non-principals and other people affiliated with these first degree crimes that we've heard from in committee this year, the year before that. In fact, most members in this body have actually voted for a version of this bill in 2011, if you were here, when the argument was that the governors, since Glendenning in 1995, were not allowing for anyone to be released. And so we said, okay, they don't have to reprove it, they just have to deny it. And then after that happened, there were just, replete, just across the board denials. And so this bill is being presented to fix that problem, where we take that pressure off of the governor, put it on the parole commission where it belongs. This red herring argument about increasing and decreasing the amount of time before someone should be considered, that might be something we could take up, but that's nothing to do with this bill. And so I would ask the body to resist this amendment.
All right, on the amendment, Chair recognizes the senator from the 30th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may ask the maker of the amendment a question.
Will the maker of the amendment yield? Appears so. Senator may proceed.
Thank you. I'm trying to understand the merits of this. It looks like you're trying to create two systems to keep the
I'm sorry,
governor
can you
in
just a
one
little bit
system?
louder? I'm sorry, we got a lot of noise over here.
Sure. It looks like, from reading the amendment, you're trying to create two systems, one in which the governor remains as a decision maker in this, and one in which he does not. And I'm just, I guess, why?
Sure. So right now, under the law, we have two systems. What the bill has is two systems. It says if you've already committed a murder, you're under a system where you're eligible for parole at 15 years, less diminishing credits, so 11 and a half years. That's what it says for people who are currently in the Division of Corrections. That's one system. The other system is if you commit your murder after this coming October, if you commit it after this October, then what happens is you're in a new system and you have to serve 20 years. So we have two different systems there, the 11 and a half year system and the 20-year system. And what the bill says is we want those to be equal. We want to say if you committed your murder 10 years ago or 3 years ago, you got to serve 20. And if you commit your murder in October, you got to serve 20, right? And once you serve 20, you go to the parole commission. That's what we want to do. It gets a little bit complicated, though, because constitutionally, we can't say to the people currently there, you got to serve 20. We can't put that in the law because that's technically a change in the sentence. So we can't do that. So what we can do to fix that and not run afoul of the Constitution is simply to say, you people who are currently there who have not yet served 20, you're going to stay. Senator, can I just have some comment? Thank you. If you're in the system, you're going to be under the system that you're going to be with the governor until you serve 20. Once you serve 20, the governor's out. It's a little bit of you can say, well, that's kind of being cute, but it's not. It's the only option you have for keeping people in there for 20 is to say, you're in for 20, and once you've served your 20, you're out. Now, if you listen to what the sponsor is saying, she's saying that hey, you don't need to do this anyway because no one will ever let them out before 20. But if that's the case, if you're not going to let them out before 20, why would you oppose this motion? Why would you oppose this? Because what we're being told is, hey, you don't need this. They'll stay in for 20, but this will make them stay in for 20. But, well, hey, you can trust the bureaucracy. But I don't think we should. To me, we should have a single standard, 20 years for everybody. That's the price you pay for first-degree murder. And if you pass this motion, everybody would have to serve 20, unless the governor could let you out early. But that's not likely to happen, as the sponsor said. So this amendment would just simply put the floor level for everybody's going to serve 20. You don't have to roll the dice with the parole commission and trust that maybe they'll do the right thing that you want them to do. And that's all it does. It's a pretty simple amendment. And what we're being told is, well, there's some people about felony murder. That's not in this bill. That's not before you. Well, we can trust the parole commission. Well, that's not our job to trust the parole commission. The governor appoints them. Our job is to stand as an independent body and say what our policy is. And this amendment says this is our policy. And it says it very clearly. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for the explanation. Mr. President, I think
On the amendment, Senator.
On the amendment, I think the beauty of the Senate is that we do listen to each other and we have thoughtful debate, and I just have to disagree, and I'm going to vote red on this amendment. I think the merits of this bill are about getting the politics out of this decision making, and I'm afraid the amendment keeps those politics in it, and I'll be voting red. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? Oh, Chair recognizes Minority Whip.
Thank you very much. I'll support the amendment because the amendment gets at the crux and the whole point, the problem with the bill. You may remember that I started off the debate on this by reading off what every other state does as far as first-degree murder and how we treat it. If we fail to fix this portion of the bill, right now under Maryland law, very simple. We've got a lot of numbers. I know it's complicated. This amendment, though, gets at the main problem with the bill as it is. It's 15 years plus dim credits, 11 and a half. But the backstop is the governor says yes or no. There's a backstop on that 11 and a half years. We are removing that backstop, so it'll be a straight 11 and a half years. This means only 3 other states will have a standard lower than ours. Maryland will have the most lenient standard when it comes to first-degree murder almost in the entire country at making people parole eligible 11 and a half years. Supporting this amendment would still make us one of the most lenient, but it at least puts us closer on parity to the rest of the states.
All right, on the amendment, any further discussion? Chair recognizes anyone who has not yet spoken who wishes to speak. If not, Chair recognizes the senator from 34th District.
Thank you, colleagues. The choice here is really simple. It's really simple. If you oppose this amendment, you are saying that first-degree murderers, that what we've said is first-degree murder nets you a mandatory sentence of 11 and a half years. 11 and a half years. And you can allow yourself to be confused by the arguments that, well, but I'm leaving the governor in the process. I'm leaving it politicized. That's not the case. That's not, you're missing the whole point of the amendment. The amendment's really simple. Do you believe that first-degree murder should be punished by more than 11 and a half years? If you do, you support this amendment. If you don't support this amendment, you are saying the mandatory sentence for first-degree murder in this state is as little as 11 and a half years. If you don't find that repugnant, then I guess you should oppose this motion. Thank you.
All right, I think we know the issue. Chair recognizes the senator from District 10. Sponsor the bill.
I think the floor leader has done a great job of explaining that this bill doesn't take us back to anything. It doesn't change what happens to people from 10,000 years ago. The bill says that instead of what is now the case, if you have committed murder and you are up for parole, you'll need 20 years going forward for any crime committed or for which you're convicted after 2021, when this bill takes effect. That's really what it says. It also says the governor will be out of parole. So instead of the concerns about 11 years, this bill doesn't deal with 11 years or with the diminution credits for what happened in the past. It's simply saying that going forward, this person would have to serve 20 years to be considered for parole. And when you do so, whatever the parole commission does after it has made its assessment, which usually takes years, and it's very systematic, and it's based on science and on a lot of analysis, would be a non-political decision made by the parole commission when you've done the 20 years. Okay.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the amendment, if there's no further discussion,
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from 34th District.
With all due respect to the chairman, this bill does affect, it's not just people who commit the crimes tomorrow. It does affect the people in the DOC today. It affects every one of them who have not yet reached 20 years of time for the crime. It affects every one of them. It effectively tells every one of them, you don't have to serve 20, you can serve as little as 11 and a half. The parole commission will start looking at you and saying, hey, you've been here 11 and a half, let's start looking at parole. We'll bring the families in, we'll put them through all of that, the victims folks, and looking at that. This does push this back to 11 and a half years for the people in the DOC. Please don't be confused. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. All right, on the amendment, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Roll call.
Senator's requested a roll call. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? Chair, in explaining his vote, just wants to make the note that I feel rather confident, well, of course, none of us are the Supreme Court, that this would be a violation of the ex post facto clause of the Constitution. For that reason, we'll be voting against the amendment. Clerk will take, the Senator has 2 minutes to explain his vote. Senator from 34th
Yes, I would.
District.
I spoke to this with the attorneys at DLS. We see no issue with the constitutionality of the amendment that I proposed. It does not change anybody's sentence. It leaves them in the existing system of all the constitutional guarantees until they've served 20 years. Once you've done that, you're out of it. That does not, it's not ex post facto, has nothing to do with the first 20 years you served. After you've served 20, it gives you a break. It has no issues with constitutionality. So if you're hanging your vote on a specious argument that, well, this is unconstitutional, that's your choice, folks, but it is not unconstitutional. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 28 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title?
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have an amendment.
If the senator could give us the amendment number.
The amendment number is 623-521/1.
All right, give us one moment. All right, I think we have it. Yes, Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. My amendment previously was to try to ensure that we kept the mandatory minimum for first-degree child rape, first-degree child sexual offense, or first-degree murder of a child under 13. I was trying to keep that at 25 years. The body chose to not accept that amendment and voted, and so I would like to offer instead then this amendment, which would simply keep that category of people under the statute, where under the current model where the governor would still get a final say. I feel very strongly about this. It's why I put the amendment forward to begin with. We put in law 25-year mandatory minimum for these kind of crimes as they relate to child sex offenses, first degree rape, first degree murder of children under the age of 13. To me, that's a special case. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often. And again, as I said before, I hope it never happens again. But if it does, I want to be sure that person does not, there's an additional check against a parole commission, which apparently, according to the bill, you could even have not even a majority of them meeting to vote on these things necessarily. But I would like very much for the governor to still be able to have a final say on someone like this, on a situation like this. It would only be a small fraction of what we're talking about, but it is truly the most heinous and vicious crimes among the most heinous and vicious crimes that you can commit, to harm a child in this way or to murder a child. And so, Mr. President, I would move this amendment, and I think it would really help this bill to have an additional safeguard that I think would make, hopefully, a lot more people more comfortable with the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, on the amendment, and Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the body, I'd ask that you would reject this amendment. The reason that the other proposed amendment was rejected regarding the 25 years is because this bill doesn't affect that. Where we have in place that there's a mandatory sentence or the 25 years for certain categories of crimes, these child sex offenses, this bill doesn't change that at all. Again, it's been said many times, this bill actually increases a potential sentence that is not a 25-year sentence to 20 years with no dim credits. And I stated before, but I will restate, that this particular category of crimes that the maker of the amendment speaks to, not only have we imposed under law a mandatory amount of time, but we've also we've prohibited dim credits for that. This bill does not affect the sentence in that category of crimes at all. This bill does three things. It increases the potential consideration for parole that's currently under law at 15 years to 20 years with no dim credits. It requires that a majority of 6 members of the parole commission make a decision. And that's not even required under current law. We're making that a requirement. And then the third thing, it says that the governor does not have the final say. The parole commission has the final say. So for those reasons, I'd ask that we reject this amendment. Thank you.
All right, on the amendment, Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Just to be clear, under current law, it's 25 years on the most heinous, and you need the governor. Under this bill, it's 20, and that's it. So current law, 25 years, parole board, then the governor. You adopt this bill, it's 20, and that's it at most for all future ones going forward. So I'll be supporting this amendment. Mr. President, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator Floor. Any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just again, this is a very common sense amendment to protect additional protection and additional assurance of justice to be served for the most unimaginable and worst crimes that we have really in our law that we spell out. You don't like to get into a situation of weighing one murder or one sort of offense against another, or a terrorist attack versus a double homicide. I mean, you have to be careful about those kind of judgments, but we really try to draw a line when it comes to things that harm children in this way. And again, as the minority whip just said, let's be very clear, because it's a little contrary to what's been explained about the bill, or at least it doesn't seem to be isolated with what's been explained about the bill. Currently, this kind of crime, 25 years. I believe with some of the diminution credits, it can get down to 22, is what the committee chair said previously in a previous amendment debate. But even so, this takes it down to 20. So this amendment doesn't speak to that, by the way. All we're trying to say is, if you're going to do that, you should have the governor have final say on these. That's what this amendment does. This amendment doesn't touch the 25 to 20. It doesn't deal with that. Unfortunately, that amendment was rejected. This just says, let's have the governor have one final check on these kinds of most heinous criminals who are coming up within 20 years for parole. So I move the amendment. I would ask for a roll call, Mr. President.
Senator moves the amendment. On the amendment, clerk, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 28 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 202 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 623, Senator Lee, Criminal Law, Crimes Involving Computers. On second reading and open to amendment.
Senator from the 7th District has an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment number 893029/1.
893209.
So move be the reading of the amendment.
Back in the House?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mishearing that. It's kind of strange not hearing it when we're calling out these amendment numbers.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
Can I proceed?
And with that, I do miss not having our pages and everybody here. So I need to first apologize to the amendment shop. From earlier, I said I did not have it, when in fact I did. I did not realize it was on my floor system. So as usual, the amendment shop has done an incredible job expeditiously getting us our amendment, so I do thank them.
Thank you, Senator. No, appreciate that. Yes, actually, let's give the amendment shop a little round of applause today, especially making it work here. All right, Senator, may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, when I looked at the bill earlier, there was an issue that jumped out to me that was not there that I wanted to add. It deals with somebody who does have this type of sorry, I'm trying to get through here. This type of ransomware in their possession. And why do they have it? Because some people do have it and they need it for reasons. And the committee had adopted an amendment that said that this paragraph does not apply to a person who has a bona fide scientific, educational, governmental, artistic, news, or other similar justification for possession of the ransomware. What I wanted to add was the word testing, because I know in the cyber world and the IT world, you have to test your system. You have to see if it's hardened, can you break it, can somebody get through it? And there are what are called ethical hackers that you hire. These are companies that the people who have this type of material, they can test your system and make sure it's hardened and they can't get, the bad guys can't get into it. So my amendment adds the word testing. But the concern I had with the committee amendment was the word artistic. I have no idea why somebody would have ransomware for an artistic purpose. And that concerned me. I don't know why it was added. I don't know where that word came from. So all my amendment does is it strikes the word artistic and adds the word testing. So, Mr. President, I move the amendment.
Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Yeah, we appreciate the good senator for bringing this up. This was discussed widely by not just the Cybersecurity Council, but by our JPR committee. We used the exception language because it mirrored some of the child porn statute. And we just wanted to make sure that those that are legitimately using ransomware to test or do research or other legitimate purposes were not caught in the sweep of this. We didn't want to penalize them. So we accept this as a friendly amendment, and we thank the senator for bringing it.
Excellent. Wonderful. Good catch. All right, any objections to the senator's amendment? If not, the senator's amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 623 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. I think we have one more. Senate Bill, clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 205, Senator Heddleman, alcoholic beverages, sale or delivery for off-premises consumption, on second reading and open to amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st District.
I'm still waiting for amendments, Mr. President. I'd like to special order it till they're here.
All right, I mean, we have them?
I don't have, there are two amendments that I've ordered that I don't have.
Well, if there's two of them, let's just kick it to the next session.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any objections to doing it in the second session? No objections. So ordered. We'll take it up at the next session. All right, senators, the desk is certainly not clear. As folks could see, I think I may be taller than the good Deputy Minority Leader if I stood on top of what is still left on the desk. So we got a long night. I think what we will try to do is just go as far as we can tonight. That would be the ideal. So we will try to clear what we have. The goal will be to get all of the third readers out of the way. We've got a lot of third readers left. So if we can get through those tonight, I think we may be able to avoid a Saturday, but it means that tonight will be a long, long night. So bring your pillows and, no, just kidding. That's probably not a good joke. We got really serious work to do. All right, a couple of quick notes. First is a positive note that I'm sure many folks saw. 100 million shots have been administered across the country. Yes, very big news. And here in Maryland, we're seeing a faster and faster deployment of vaccines. The governor made the announcement yesterday. We're going to have some more clarity about when and where individuals can get their shots. Nothing more important right now. Nothing more important than getting shots in arms. So we're seeing some progress, and hopefully now we've heard that the supply is going to increase on March 29th. So we're going to go from what was a supply problem to, we'll see, hopefully a mass distribution. This is an administrative note. On the website, there's new guidance for crossover for the House and the Senate. So the House will not be holding any hearings on identically cross-filed bills. Bills with significant changes or non-cross-filed legislation will generally have sponsor-only hearings, but may add witnesses at the discretion of the chair. On the Senate side, because we're a little bit more special, we have, it depends on the committee. And so there's going to be specific, and these will be instructions for the House. It is on the website now. So each committee will handle it because they're subject matter expertise, and we want to make sure that we have fair bill hearings. So the House will have a general rule. So that's the general rule for senators to know as bills are over on the other side. On the Senate, we will make sure that the delegates take a look at each committee's rule depending on the subject matter jurisdiction.
Mr. President?
Yes, Senator.
May I maybe ask a question or make a comment about what you just said?
Please.
I appreciate the update. It's good to know. I think it's common sense as far as cross-filed bills. I would say I hope that if we have bills coming into our committees from the House that are pretty heavy policy lifts, that we would have some more testimony besides just sponsor. And I think that's probably your intention, and that's probably the intention of everybody here. I just know during this time when it's very hard, I'm so used to in a session, if there's a bill before my committee, to have a lobbyist from one group come in and maybe an advocate from another group and be able to sit and talk. We just can't do that here. So I hope that if we have serious, real significant policy changes to a bill in our committee, or a policy that is more than just a task force or something, but something real significant, that we have at least some testimony it can be allowed if it's requested by the sponsor. So that's just my, I guess, comment or request as a member who's trying to make sure I do my due diligence.
Certainly, and
Thank
that
you.
is the intent of having a little bit more flexibility on the Senate side. We want to make sure we have the information that we need to make decisions. So we didn't want to have a blanket rule. We wanted to make sure that there was the ability to get the information that's necessary and do the best we can in the last 28 days. But certainly review the information that's up on the website. If there are any questions, don't hesitate to follow up. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 19.
Yeah, Mr. President, just real fast, since it's a little challenging to catch all, with the masks and not being able to see, would you mind putting that in a memo to send to each of us in an email so that because I wasn't sure I caught all of what the policy will be.
Yes, and it's in the scrolling bar of the front page of the MGA's website. So it's posted in narrative form with all the details. So if there are any questions, please don't hesitate. We'll follow up and clarify. Any other questions there? Nope. All right. Let's do committee announcements. Chair of Finance Committee.
I won't schedule anything prior to the evening session.
All right. Chair recognizes the Chair of Education and Environmental Affairs.
Mr. President, did I hear that the training was canceled for today?
I just saw a note that it is because the delegates are unable, so we'll have to reschedule. So the 3 to 5 is now reopened a bit.
Okay, then Education, Health, and Environment will meet at 4:30 for voting session. 4:30 for voting session.
All right. Chair of Budget and Taxation.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the President announced earlier, the House actually has passed the budget and now in our possession. And of course, we are very efficient. So we're actually going to pass the budget this afternoon at 3 o'clock.
All right, 3 o'clock, Budget and B&T. Chair recognizes the Chair of Budget, Judicial Proceedings.
Thanks. We'll come back at 3:30 for a voting session.
3:30 in JPR. Other announcement, select committees, special committees, delegations. Chair recognizes the chair of the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. Senators, it's time to say goodbye and farewell, and we wish our pages well. Hopefully they've persevered with us here today and late yesterday. So we're going to be having their pictures up on the board as we say farewell and wish them well on their next journey in their lives. So I will start the first half of the pages, and then my colleague from Howard County, the good senator from Howard County, will pick up. So we will begin. Thank you so much, Pages, for your wonderful contribution and working with us. We hope it's been a profitable experience for you, and you may want to come back and work with us in the future. So, Haley Balsam, District 35B, C. Milton Wright High School. Segev Berner Kaddish, District 20, Albert Einstein High School. Simone Flynn, District 33, Anne Arundel High School. Nina Jackson, District 26, Oxon Hill High School. Ezra Kay, District 43, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. Eduardo Marin, District 13, Oakland Mills High School. Anaya McNair, District 43, Reginald F. Lewis High School. Chloe Niedzliski, District 27C, Huntington High School. And Tolulupe Oluyade, District 23B, Academy of Health Sciences at Prince George's Community College. Thank you all so much, and here is the next group.
Senator from Howard and Carroll Counties.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We have Kaylee Perez, District 35B, Perryville High School. Prerna Polpali, District 9A, Marriott Ridge High School. Jordan Racine, District 15, Winston Churchill High School. Ariel Smith, District 8, Eastern Technical High School. Florence Tien, District 33, Broadneck High School. Hannah Ullman, District 3A, Frederick High School. Matilda Vereen, District 33, Severna Park High School. Christina Walker, District 28, Henry E. Lackey High School. Angela Yu, District 15, Thomas S. Wooten High School. Thank you all so much for your hard work this week. Let's give them all a round of applause.
We very, very much thank our pages. We wish you were here with us, but keep up the amazing work, and we wish you the best as you all head into your next adventure post-graduation. Hopefully it's an in-person graduation. Now we have these vaccines. We hope that you get to walk across that stage. All right, any other business before we adjourn for the day? If not, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. President, will the floor be secured while we're gone this afternoon?
Yes, we can secure the chamber.
So we want to leave things here until tonight. We can do that.
Yes, Senator.
Okay, thank you. I move that the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until later today, Friday, March 19th, to the next legislative day at 6 p.m.
Without objection, so ordered. Stay safe, wear your mask, get that vaccine.